Chapter 3889. Boom! Lian Jiufeng let out a roar, and his flames erupted like a tsunami. They battered the space around him violently. This madman, Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes darkened as he growled. He never thought that Lian Jiufeng would attack at this moment. He was just a soul. He posed no threat to Lian Jiufeng. Right now, Leng Huang Jishue was extremely injured. It seemed like she could not stop Lian Jiufeng. If Lian Jiufeng forcefully intervened and interrupted Nie Tian's merging of the two seals, it would be terrible. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, move aside. Lian Jiufeng growled coldly. His eyes shone with sharpness and murderous intent. Wishful thinking. Leng Huang Jishue stepped forward. Sword intent surged around her. Her eyes were cold and determined. Nie Tian was behind her. There was no way she could retreat. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being merciless. Lian Jiufeng roared. He immediately swung his palm. Violent fire energy surged out. It was like an endless sea of fire that pressed down on Leng Huang Jishue. The surrounding space was filled with the power of fire. It was as if the world itself was burning. It made people feel like they had fallen into a furnace. Leng Huang Jishue's eyes trembled slightly. She slashed the air with her sword. Immediately, a sword shadow shot out like an arrow. It was extremely sharp and murderous. The sword shadow was like a sharp blade. It stabbed into the sea of fire and forcefully cut it open. Lian Jiufeng instantly felt a bone-piercing chill. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Then, he retreated and barely avoided the fatal attack. He stabilized himself. His eyes were filled with darkness and shock. He never thought that Leng Huang Jishue could still erupt with such terrifying power despite being heavily injured. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would have lost his life in that split second just now. Leng Huang Jishue stood still. Her eyes were cold and murderous. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. She was extremely injured. Forcefully drawing on sword intent was extremely pressuring to her martial body. Freezing Phoenix Jishue, are you really going to do this for an outsider? Lian Jiufeng asked coldly and angrily. He didn't understand why Cold Phoenix Jishue would protect Nie Tian so much. If the current Leng Huang Jishue was still the Shui, from before, he could still accept it. However, Leng Huang Jishue had already awakened her memories and knew her true identity. So why would she still want to protect Nie Tian? Don't force me. Cold Phoenix Jishue replied coldly. Sword intent that was as red as blood surged around her, but her entire person was as cold as an iceberg, causing others to feel fear at the sight of her. You forced me. Lian Jiufeng's eyes suddenly narrowed. With a growl, the power of golden flames erupted from his body. Terrifying tongues of fire immediately appeared in the air, lashing out violently as if they wanted to devour and kill everything in their path. Die! Then, Lian Jiufeng let out a furious roar. His face was hideous and terrifying. He charged at Leng Huang Jishue like a ferocious beast. Boom! 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 Immediately, 3 terrifying firestorms appeared in the air. They swept towards Leng Huang Jishue with great momentum. Watch out! Ghost Father Ling Yi could not help but cry out in shock. Leng Huang Jishue stood where she was like an iceberg. However, the power of sword intent around her became even more violent. It was released madly, causing her to seem extremely sharp. It was as if she was about to tear the world apart. Boom! In the next moment, Leng Huang Jishue attacked directly. A shadow of a sword appeared in the air and fell. The aura of sword intent immediately filled the entire hall, suppressing the aura of the golden flames. Bang! 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 The shadow of the sword immediately fell and destroyed the 3 firestorms. Immediately, boundless power surged out and spread in all directions. The entire hall was battered by the terrifying power. Qi Chunfeng and the others who had been curled up in a corner of the hall desperately used their own power to resist the impact of the power, hoping to save their own lives. However, Nie Tian did not move at all under the raging waves. The power of the double seals formed a natural barrier around his body, preventing him from being hurt. Bang! At this moment, a dull sound rang out. Then, two figures retreated and stabilized themselves at the same time. Lung Huang Jishue, do you really want to fight to the death? Lian Jiufeng stabilized himself. His eyes shone with murderous light as he roared like a wild beast. Lung Huang Jishue's face was dark. She did not reply. However, her eyes were extremely determined. She would not give in even half a step. Damn it! Lian Jiufeng was completely enraged. He roared like thunder. Then, a pair of flame wings appeared behind him. The power of the golden flames erupted from his body like a raging wave. The terrifying impact of the flames shook the entire hall as if it was about to collapse at any time. Lung Huang Jishue's expression was calm. However, at a certain moment, she glanced at Nietian. Only after making sure that he was fine did she relax. No matter what, she had to ensure that Nietian successfully fused the supreme double seals. Lung Huang Jishue, you forced me to do this. At this moment, Lian Jiufeng roared madly. Then he moved instantly. The flames around him turned into a merciless storm that surged towards Lung Huang Jishue. Lung Huang Jishue's sword intent surged all over her body. However, she could not block the incomparably scorching power of the flames. At this moment, her expression was extremely ugly. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Only her eyes still maintained their sharpness and coldness. One sword, fallen spirit. At the moment when the firestorm was about to descend, her eyes trembled slightly, and she immediately made her move. The blood-red sword was like the sunset that filled the sky. It suddenly descended and condensed into a gigantic sword shadow in the void. Like a raging dragon, it dashed towards the firestorm. Boom! Bang! 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 In the next moment, the two extremely powerful forces collided with each other, and the sky rumbled while the entire hall started to shake. It was like a small boat being tossed about in a storm. Lung Huang Jishue and Lian Jiufeng's figures were instantly engulfed by the violent power. Boom, boom, boom. Chi, chi, chi. In the void, terrifying powers clashed, collided, devoured, and fused together. The endless power of strangulation was incomparably violent, as if it could destroy everything. Protector. Ghost Father Ling Yu was shocked by the scene in front of him. His face was incomparably shocked as he shouted in a daze. After a long time, the violent power in the void dissipated, and two blood-colored figures appeared. Lian Jiufeng's body was drenched in blood. His body was covered in terrifying wounds, as if he had been cut by a sharp blade. Chapter 3890. Lung Huang Jishue's body was a bloody mess. She trembled slightly, as if she could barely stand. Obviously, her injuries were extremely heavy, and the aura within her body was extremely weak. She was like a withered leaf that was about to wither and wither. However, her eyes were still as sharp as ever. She stared at Lian Jiufeng like a pair of sharp blades. She did not show any signs of fear or retreat. Even if she was on her last breath, she would never take a step back, because Nietian was behind her. Lung Huang Jishue. At this time, Lian Jiufeng's body shook. The blood on his body was washed away. His eyes were extremely dark as he said coldly, "Get out of my way." He did not want to kill Lung Huang Jishue. He only wanted the supreme twin seals. "Unless you kill me." Lung Huang Jishue's lips twitched. Her voice trembled, but she was extremely determined. "You're courting death." Lian Jiufeng could feel the determination in Lung Huang Jishue's eyes. His pupils contracted. He growled and showed his ferocity. He did not want to kill Lung Huang Jishue, but that did not mean he did not dare to. If Lung Huang Jishue insisted on blocking his way, he could only harden his heart. "I'll say it one last time, get out of my way." Lian Jiufeng's eyes darkened. He spoke again, enunciating every word with killing intent. "Come," Lung Huang Jishue said solemnly. Her trembling body did not retreat. Instead, she took a step forward. "Ah!" Lian Jiufeng's eyes trembled. He roared like a wild beast. "You forced me to do this. Die." He slammed his palm the moment he finished speaking, Boundless power of fire appeared and condensed into a giant palm in the air, pressing down on Lung Huang Jishu. No! Ghost Father Ling Yi was shocked by the scene before him and shouted. Lung Huang Jishue was the protector of the three-life race and the hope of the three-life race. If Lian Jiufeng killed Lung Huang Jishue, it was the same as cutting off the hope of the three-life race. Nietian, I've tried my best. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui sensed the aura of death approaching, but her gaze was incomparably calm. She turned around to look at the figure behind her, her lips slightly trembling as she used all her strength to speak. Boom! In the next instant, a deadly palm strike descended, mercilessly pressing down on Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. At the moment of life and death, a strange force suddenly surged out and enveloped the Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. However, he was still a step too late. Bang! Before the strange power could descend, the shadow of the palm descended and directly landed on Lung Huang Jishue's body. The latter's figure trembled and was directly sent flying. Almost at the same time, the strange force fell and blocked the remaining force of the palm shadow. Bang! However, Lung Huang Jishue's body heavily smashed onto a huge stone pillar, sinking into it. Protector! This shocking scene caused Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes to tremble, and he shouted loudly. Lian Jiufeng frowned and exclaimed in surprise when the strange power suddenly appeared. He clearly did not expect that strange force to suddenly appear. In the next instant, he suddenly felt a murderous aura lock onto him, and it actually caused him to feel a bone-piercing chill. Nietian. He suddenly came to his senses and turned around to look. A figure stood coldly in the air. It was none other than Nietian. Nietian had finished fusing the two seals. How is this possible? Lian Jiufeng's eyes trembled as he cried out in shock. His face was completely frozen. He could not believe that Nietian could fuse the two supreme seals in such a short amount of time. It should be known that the two supreme seals were the most powerful items of the three-life race. Just how strong was Nietian's martial body to be able to fuse the two supreme seals in such a short amount of time? This! Ghost Father Ling Yi came to his senses, and his expression suddenly changed. He was completely dumbfounded. He also did not think that Nietian would be able to finish fusing the two seals at this moment. He was originally surprised that Nietian would need at least a few months to fuse the two seals. But Nietian had done it in less than an hour. This was simply too inconceivable, completely beyond his imagination. Share! Nietianling's eyes trembled in the air as he looked at Ji Shui. Die! It was at this moment that Lian Jiufeng came to his senses. He actually let out a low roar, and his aura instantly skyrocketed to the limit. Then, he flashed towards Nietian. Nietian had just finished fusing the two seals, and his aura was still unstable. This was the best time for him to attack. Scram! Nietian's eyes narrowed slightly as he let out a bellow. His raging voice was like a clap of thunder that resounded through the entire hall, causing the entire hall to shake. It was as if this world could no longer contain his power. Boom! In the next instant, his figure shook as he took a step forward. Instantly, an extremely enormous strand of sword intent surged out violently like a tempestuous wave. Bang! Lian Jiufeng was sent flying before he could even react. He left a bloody trail in the air and smashed into the wall behind him. No one knew if he was dead or alive. This! Ghost Father Ling Ye's face trembled as he saw this. He was so shocked that he could not speak a word. Nietian, who had just fused the two seals, was able to erupt with such a terrifying aura. It was just too terrifying. Qi Chunfeng and the others cowered in a corner and trembled. They did not dare to speak. But Nietian ignored Lian Jiufeng completely. He arrived beside Lung Huang Jishue in a flash and held the bloody Lung Huang Jishue in his arms. However, Lung Huang Jishue's eyes were tightly closed at this moment. She was completely devoid of life. Share! Nietian's eyes trembled. He roared and poured all his power into Lung Huang Jishue's body. However, Lung Huang Jishue, who had suffered the impact of his power, still did not move at all. Share! Nie Tian roared furiously like a wild beast. He released all his power in an attempt to save the person in his arms. Unfortunately, Lung Huang Jishue was like a block of ice. She was bone-chilling and lifeless. Nie Tian, she's gone. Fat Cat's voice resounded like thunder in Nie Tian's ears. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Nie Tian's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. Lung Huang Jishue, I won't allow you to die. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! His roar was like thunder, but it was so powerless right now. Nie Tian used all his power. Blood even seeped out of the corner of his mouth, but he still could not wake the person in his arms. The tears in his eyes finally fell. At this moment, no matter how determined his heart was, he could not stop his tears. Pain that pierced into his bones, pain that tore at his heart and lungs. In this moment, he felt like his body and soul were being torn apart. He could never be whole again. Aura! Fat Cat's voice rang out once more in his moment of despair. Chapter 3891. Heavenly Sacred Heart. Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and then he felt a weak but stable aura in Lung Huang Jishue's body. His expression changed, and his eyes glowed with excitement. Lung Huang Jishue's body no longer had any signs of life, but there was a weak aura circulating in her body, like another heart of hers, beating weakly. This, Nie Tian sensed the weak but stable heartbeat of the heavenly sacred heart. He could not help but be stunned for a while, and could not speak for a long time. The aura of the heavenly sacred heart was still there. Did it mean that Lung Huang Jishue was still alive? Little fatty, Shui is still alive, right? Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he asked in a trembling voice. Fat Cat's face was tense. After hesitating for a long time, she said, the aura of the heavenly sacred heart is indeed still there, but this does not mean that Cher is still alive. I did not sense any signs of life in Cher's body. This is too strange. The existence of the aura of the heavenly sacred heart meant that there was no definite connection between it and Lung Huang Jishue, and it was impossible for a dead person to have any resonance with the heavenly sacred heart. The aura of the heavenly sacred heart was still there, but there was no sign of life in Lung Huang Jishue's body. This was very strange. At this moment, Fat Cat seemed to have sensed something, and her expression suddenly changed. Almost at the same time, Lung Huang Jishue's body underwent an incredible change. The blood on her body slowly fell off, and then the horrifying wounds slowly healed. An extremely mysterious aura shrouded her, making her seem to have fallen into a mysterious state. Nie Tian was stunned by the scene in front of him. He was completely stunned. His eyes stared straight at Lung Huang Jishue, and his mouth was wide open, but he could not make a sound. He could not imagine that Lung Huang Jishue's body, which had completely lost its vitality, would automatically recover. Not far away, Ghost Father Ling Yu was also shocked by the scene in front of him. His illusory face was full of disbelief. Nie Tian sensed the aura around Lung Huang Jishue and felt even more shocked in his heart. He could sense that not only was Lung Huang Jishue's aura changing, even the surrounding space-time was undergoing some sort of miraculous change. It was as if Lung Huang Jishue had been separated from the space-time in front of him by some sort of power and was now in another space-time. Nie Tian, take a closer look at the space-time aura around Cher. At this moment, the Fat Cat's voice rang out, and there was great joy in her surprise. Space-time aura. Nie Tian's eyes trembled and his expression changed. He had already sensed that the space-time around Lung Huang Jishue had changed, but when he carefully sensed it, his face was completely frozen, and his whole person was completely petrified. He had never thought that such a strange change would happen to Cold Phoenix Jishue's body. After a long time, Nie Tian finally came to his senses. His eyes trembled as he said in a daze, "Time has stopped." He finally sensed the crux of the matter. The space-time around cold Phoenix G Shue's body had actually stopped. This stillness was not the stillness of space, but the stillness of the flow of time. In other words, cold Phoenix G Shue's life had been frozen by a mysterious power. Nye Tian, take a closer look. There is a layer of energy shield around Cher's body. Then the fat cat's voice rang out again, and it said in a deep voice. When Nye Tian heard the fat cat's words, he finally reacted. He took a deep breath, and his divine sense directly connected with the eternal night demon fox, and carefully observed cold Phoenix Ji Shui. Sure enough, he saw that there was a layer of energy shield around cold Phoenix Ji Shui's body that was extremely difficult to detect. It seemed to be only a thin layer, but it contained some kind of mysterious power. It is this layer of shield that made the space-time around Cher stop. After a while, Nye Tian became much colder, and he said in a deep voice, "Yes." The fat cat nodded and said, "If I'm not wrong, this layer of shield should be the legendary Sacred Heart protection. The fact that Cher was able to recover from her injuries should be because of this shield. Moreover, this layer of shield made the time around cold Phoenix Ji Shui stop. The last trace of her life, aura, was preserved. Sacred Heart protection." Nye Tian's eyes trembled, and he said with blazing passion, "Cher is not dead yet, is she?" "Yes." The fat cat nodded, but there was not the slightest bit of relaxation on its face. Instead, it became more serious, and it could not hide its worry. It said, "Cher is indeed still alive. The last trace of her life aura is integrated into the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law and is being protected by the Sacred Heart. However, the power of the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law cannot reverse life and death. At most, it can only delay the time of Cher's death. And I speculate that the state of the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law cannot be maintained for a long time." This, Nye Tian was stunned, and the slightly happy expression on his face once again became unsightly. After a moment of silence, he asked, "How long can the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law be maintained?" The fat cat frowned, paused for a few seconds, and said, "At most a year, at least half a year." "Half a year." Nye Tian's eyes trembled, and his expression suddenly changed, and suddenly became even more unsightly. He originally thought that with the protection power of the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law, it could protect cold Phoenix Ji Shui's life. He did not expect that it could only temporarily delay her death. After half a year, the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law would not be able to maintain the state of Sacred Heart protection, and cold Phoenix Ji Shui would also die. "Fat, you must have a way to save Cher, right?" Nye Tian's eyes trembled, and he asked nervously. "Sigh." As if it had already expected that Nye Tian would ask this, the fat cat let out a long sigh and said, "I have long thought about it, but there is nothing that can bring such a weak person back to life." "What about the forbidden astral soul?" Nye Tian's eyes darkened, and he asked in a deep voice. "The forbidden astral soul does have the power to reverse life and death, but such power will only be effective after the cultivator has fused with the astral soul." The fat cat said bitterly, "With Cher's current state, it is impossible for her to withstand the forbidden astral soul. If she forcibly fuses with it, I'm afraid she will not be able to fuse with it. The astral soul will directly die." This, Nye Tian was stunned, and his expression stiffened. He himself also knew that the forbidden astral soul could only save the living and not the dead. Desolate, ghost boundless, Tang 13, Xian Xie, Jun Jianxing, and the others all fused with the astral soul in a dying state. But at that time, they were still alive and could successfully withstand the power of the fusion. But at this moment, cold Phoenix Ji Shui simply could not withstand the power of the astral soul. "No matter what, I must save Cher." Nye Tian's eyes trembled, and he said heavily. Chapter 3892. "What is it?" The Ghost Emperor's voice suddenly sounded. Although it was calm, it exploded in Nye Tian's ears like a clap of thunder, causing him to perk up and ask in surprise. "Angel's blood wings." The Ghost Emperor was silent for a moment, then uttered these words one by one. Angel's blood wings. As soon as he finished speaking, Nyetian and Fat Cat exclaimed at the same time. One looked puzzled, the other shocked. Nyetian didn't know what Angel's blood wings were, so he was puzzled. Fat Cat didn't expect the Ghost Emperor to say Angel's blood wings. Angel's blood wings? What is that? Nyetian became cold and asked in a low voice. Before the Ghost Emperor could speak, Fat Cat said in a low voice, a sacred relic of the Angel tribe. It represents the most supreme thing of the Angel tribe. Angel tribe. Nyetian couldn't help but tremble when he heard this name, and his expression changed slightly. He was no stranger to the Angel tribe, and he was quite fated with several members of the Angel tribe. His cousin Nyechingwan's mother was a member of the Angel tribe, so she was considered half an Angel tribe member. The person beside Nyechingwan, EMO, was a descendant of the Baleful Wings tribe. Although he was expelled from the Holy World, he was a genuine member of the Angel tribe. He had also met the saintess of the Angel tribe, Lan Shuani, who had even given him the Angel's sacred token. He had also met the saintess of the Angel tribe, Sacred Feather Phoenix Supreme. Her strength was not below that of the natural Cursed Lone Star and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. Speaking of which, Nyetian also had a rather deep relationship with the Angel tribe. At this moment, he was shocked when Fat Cat said that Angel's blood wings were a sacred relic of the Angel tribe. Little Fatty, how can I get the blood angel wings? Nyetian's eyes trembled as he asked. The Fat Cat's expression sank. Legend has it that the angel blood wings were left behind by the angel ruler before the primordial era. They are the wings of the angel ruler and contain the purest bloodline power of the angel clan. They are the supreme treasure of the angel clan. The bloodline power of the angel race is the bloodline power with the greatest vitality. The bloodline power of the angel blood wings can indeed help Cher recover. But at this point, Fat Cat's face sank and she paused. But what? Nyetian asked anxiously. But the angel's blood wings are guarded by the 9 powerful elders of the angel clan, not to mention ordinary angel clan martial artists. Even the angel clan's patriarch would need the permission of the 9 elders to see the angel's blood wings. Fat Cat sighed and said, as for outsiders, it is even more impossible to rely on them. Blood wings of the close angel. This, Nyetian was stunned. He didn't expect the angel blood wings to be so precious. It is said that no outsider has ever seen the angel blood wings, let alone use the angel blood wings. Fat Cat said helplessly, it is impossible for you to use the angel blood wings to save Cher. I have the angel sacred token. Nyetian's eyes trembled slightly. He took out the angel sacred token that Lan Shuani had given him, a look of surprise on his face. The angel sacred token is useless. Fat Cat shook her head and said, the angel sacred token does have an extraordinary significance to the angel race, but it is impossible to use the angel blood wings with just a sacred token. Nyetian's face sank, and he suddenly froze in place, unable to speak. He now knew that the angel blood wings could save Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, but he could not obtain the angel blood wings, which made him feel even more pain in his heart. Nyetian, let's think of another way. Fat Cat sighed helplessly. I want to meet the people of the angel race. Nyetian's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice. Fat Cat frowned, and her face immediately turned ugly. She knew Nyetian's temperament very well. He would not turn back, even if he crashed into a brick wall. If he firmly believed that the angel blood wings could save Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, he would do everything he could to obtain it. But this time, it was no small matter. The angel blood wings were the supreme item of the angel race. If Nyetian dared to have any ideas about the angel blood wings, it was tantamount to provoking the entire angel race. In the all-heaven sacred world, the angel race was an extremely powerful race. Even a heavenly law sacred pavilion would not easily offend them. Even though Nyetian had many identities and had the support of many powerful forces, it was still a little difficult for him to obtain the angel blood wings. Nyetian, do you know how powerful the angel race is? Fat Cat calmed down a little and asked. No matter what, I have to give it a try. Nietion's eyes were resolute as he replied in a deep voice. He had already made a decision in his heart. He had to give it his all and fight to the end. Fat Cat shook her head helplessly and did not say anything else. Since Nietion had already made a decision, he would not easily change his mind. Next, he could only take it one step at a time. Nietion, let's leave this place first. Fat Cat said in a deep voice and then went silent. Nietion nodded slightly and directly placed Cold Phoenix Ji Shui into the 9 extremes. Nietion, how is the protector? Ghost Father Ling Yi finally reacted at this moment. He took a step forward and asked Nietion. Not very optimistic. Nietion shook his head and did not hide anything. He told Ling Yi about Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's situation and finally said, Lord Clan Leader, don't worry. I will do my best to ensure Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's survival. Ghost Father Ling Yi listened with a dull face and could not react for a long time. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui was the last hope of the Three Lives clan. If she died, would there still be a future for the entire Three Lives clan? Lord Clan Leader, I have to leave this place now. Nietion did not say anything else and directly bid farewell. Leave. Ghost Father Ling Yi was stunned for a moment and said, You have just fused the double seals. Your martial body is not stable yet. If you leave now, I'm afraid your martial body will not be able to bear it. Nietion had just fused the supreme double seals. The power of the double seals had not adapted to his martial body yet. If he left the Three Lives ancestral land immediately, his martial body might not be able to bear it. I have to bear it. Nietion's gaze trembled slightly, and he said heavily, Rui Qinyu and Cold Phoenix Ji Shui did not have much time. For him, time was everything. He could not afford to delay it. All right. The Ghost Father, Ling Yi, could tell what Nietion was thinking. He nodded solemnly. He was just a spirit. He relied on the special boundary power of the Three Lives ancestral land to survive until now and could not leave. He could only stay here and wait for Nietion to return. Perhaps Nietion would return. Lian Jiufeng. At this moment, Nietion remembered Lian Jiufeng. His eyes suddenly turned cold, and he turned to look. But there was no sign of Lian Jiufeng at the collapsed wall. Chapter 3893. Nietion was not surprised that Lian Jiufeng had escaped. He had been completely focused on Lung Huang Ji Shui, so he hadn't paid any attention to Lian Jiufeng at all. If Lian Jiufeng was still here, Nietion would have killed him without hesitation. Let's go. Nietion bade farewell to Ghost Father Ling Yi without hesitation. Ghost Father Ling Yi did not make him stay. He told Nietion about the exit of the Three Lives ancestral grounds. Nietion left with Qi Chunfeng and the others. Lord Nietion, Lian Jiufeng will definitely go to the Blazing Wing race after he leaves this place. If you want revenge, I can make him stay, Qi Chunfeng said carefully to Nietion along the way. Qi Chunfeng had seen Nietion's performance in the Three Lives ancestral grounds. He had never imagined that a heavenly mandate realm martial practitioner could be so terrifying. Only now did he realize that the silver-haired martial practitioner in front of him was someone he could not afford to offend. That was why he had tried his best to curry favor with Nietion. He wanted to get closer to Nietion. That is between the Blazing Wing race and Lian Jiufeng. It has nothing to do with me. Nietion glanced at Qi Chunfeng and said coldly. Nietion knew what Qi Chunfeng was thinking, but the most important thing right now was Rui Qinyu and Lung Huang Ji Shui. He wanted to take revenge on Lian Jiufeng, but now was not the time. Moreover, the relationship between the Blazing Wing race and Lian Jiufeng was unclear. Qi Chunfeng clearly did not realize how powerful Lian Jiufeng was. A mere Blazing Wing race could not trap Lian Jiufeng at all. Nietion did not think that a single Blazing Wing race could kill Lian Jiufeng. At that moment, Nietion seemed to have thought of something. Eyebrows furrowed, he turned to Qi Chunfeng and asked, Qi Chunfeng, the Blaze Wings are part of the angels, right? Yes. Chunfeng didn't know why Nietion would suddenly ask such a question, but he still nodded and said, Our race has another name, the Fire Angel. Fire Angel? Nietion frowned. The corners of his mouth twitched as he asked directly, "What's the status of your blazing feather race and the angel race?" The fire angel is one of the 9 branches of the angels, known as the fire lineage. Qi Chunfeng's eyes flickered with excitement, but his expression soon became gloomy as he said, "However, our branch is only an insignificant existence in the entire blazing feather race. How can I meet the strongest existence of your fire lineage?" Nietion's eyes darkened as he asked directly, "You want to see the reverend of the fire lineage?" Qi Chunfeng asked with a strange expression. "Yes." Nietion nodded with a firm look in his eyes. "This." Qi Chunfeng's expression darkened as he said, "Sir Nieton, not everyone can meet the reverend of the fire lineage. Even the leader of our branch has a hard time meeting the reverend. Can I meet him?" Nietion's eyes narrowed as he took out the angel's sacred badge. This is... Qi Chunfeng's eyes trembled as he saw the angel's sacred badge in Nietion's hand. His face stiffened, and he didn't react for a long time. He didn't expect Nietion to have the angel's sacred badge. Every member of the angel race knows about the angel's sacred badge. Although most people have never seen the angel's sacred badge before, every member of the angel race can recognize the unique aura of the badge. Qi Chunfeng was certain that the badge in Nietion's hand was the legendary angel's sacred badge. Yes, of course. Only after long, while did Qi Chunfeng snap back to his senses. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Lord Nietion, do you need me to show you the way to Overlord Blazing Feather? I don't want anyone to know that I have the angel's sacred badge. Understand?" Nietion acted as if he didn't hear Qi Chunfeng's words. He spoke with a gloomy and cold expression. "I understand. I won't tell anyone." Qi Chunfeng nodded as he promised. He was afraid that Nietion would kill him. "From now on, you will follow me. I have a few things to ask you about the angel race." Nietion nodded and said, Yes. Qi Chunfeng nodded again. He didn't dare to disobey. After a while, Nieton, Qi Chunfeng, and the others came out from the ancestral land of 3 lives. Boom! As soon as Nietion left the ancestral land of 3 lives, he felt a violent force rushing into his body. His expression changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Are you all right, Mr. Nye?" Upon seeing this, Jun Jinxing hastily stepped forward and held Nietion up. "I'm fine." Nietion wiped the blood from his mouth and nodded while enduring the pain. Ghost Fatherling Yi said that Nietion had just fused the Supreme Twin Seals. The power of the seals was not yet stable. Once he left the ancestral land of 3 lives, his martial body might not be able to withstand the impact. However, Nietion was pressed for time and had to leave. As soon as he left the ancestral land of 3 lives, he felt the impact of the seals. His body was in excruciating pain, as if every piece of his flesh was about to be torn apart. However, he endured the pain with a gloomy expression. "Nietion, Jinxing, you're out." At this time, Yin Wuqi, who had been waiting outside the ancestral land of 3 lives, saw Nietion and the others appear and came to their side. At this time, Saint Rock Academy and the Blazing Feather Race had already left with Lian Jiufeng. Only Yin Wuqi was left. "Let's leave first," Nietion said while enduring the pain. "Okay." Yin Wuqi agreed and left with Nietion and the others. Qi Chunfeng followed Nietion, while the other Blazing Wings returned to the Holy Rock Institute. Nietion, Yin Wuqi, and the others did not return to Saint Rock Academy. Instead, they returned to the Mu family in 9 Changes City. Nietion did not want to waste time, but the impact of the double seals was too strong. He had to rest for a few days, or his martial body would not be able to withstand it. Helpless, Nietion rested for 3 days in the Mu residence. After his martial body adapted to the double seals, his aura became much stronger. 3 days later, Nietion and the others took their seats in the Mu residence's main hall. "Nietion, where are you going next?" Mu Jiuchuan knew that Nietion was going to leave, so he asked out of concern. "I'm going to the high-rank Sacred World. I need some talented young martial practitioners." Nietion frowned and said in a deep voice, "Right now, Lung Huang Jishue and Rui Qinyu were both in danger. However, Compared to Lung Huang Jishua, Rui Qinyu's situation was even more urgent. Nie Tian only had about 20 days left. Within this period of time, he had to find 6 young geniuses whose talent was comparable to Raindrop Genius. Chapter 3894. Nie Tian was surprised to hear Yin Wuqi mention the 5 great academies. He had never heard of the 5 great academies, so he knew nothing about them. You don't know about the 5 great academies? Yin Wuqi was surprised to see Nie Tian's reaction. I don't. Nie Tian frowned and shook his head. All right. Yin Wuqi shook his head helplessly and said, the 5 great academies refer to the 5 strongest martial academies in the all-sacred realm. They are the Dragon Martial Academy, Bloodwing Academy, 10 Directions Academy, 10,000 Martial Academy, and the Heavenly Law Martial Palace. The 5 great academies represent the strongest holy land of martialism in the all-sacred realm. For millions of years, they have nurtured countless powerful martial artists. In the all-sacred realm, more than half of the heavenly martial sacred ancestor experts come from the 5 great academies. Therefore, any one of the 5 great academies is no weaker than a first-rate power in the all-sacred realm. However, the 5 great academies do not compete with the outside world. They do not have many conflicts with the outside world. In fact, they even exist to balance the various powers. The reason why the various organizations of the Saints' world have been able to coexist in peace for so many years is all thanks to the 5 academies, said Jianshun. Yin Wuqi smiled and looked at Nie Tian. I just wanted to ask you if you're interested in joining the 5 great academies. I'm not interested, Nie Tian answered coldly, his face calm. Not interested? Yin Wuqi was startled. He thought he had misheard. He did not expect Nie Tian to be uninterested in joining the 5 great academies. In the all-sacred realm, the 5 great academies were the sacred grounds of martial arts for countless cultivators. Countless people dreamed of joining the 5 great academies. However, the 5 great academies had very high recruitment requirements. Every year, only cultivators from high-rank sacred worlds and top-rank sacred worlds were qualified to join. A cultivator born in a different sacred world represented a completely different starting point. How could it be easy to defeat others when their starting points were different? However, Nie Tian was uninterested in joining the 5 great academies. That seemed a little too arrogant. Nie Tian's response was not because he was too arrogant, but because he did not like this kind of academy life. To him, the real world of martial arts was the best academy. He had entered some martial arts academies before, but he rarely learned from the teachers in the academies. He would not even participate in some of the missions in the academies. To him, those missions were too easy, and they didn't serve the slightest purpose of training. Nie Tian, didn't you just say that you need some talented young martial artists? Yin Wuqi took a moment to calm himself down. His eyes flickered as he said, there will be many talented martial artists participating in the recruitment of the 5 academies this time. You can find the people you need more easily there. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he listened to Yin Wuqi's words. Yin Wuqi was right. When the 5 academies recruited students, there would be many talented martial artists participating. He urgently needed to awaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman for Rui Qianyu, and the awakening formation required a martial artist with great talent. Perhaps he could take advantage of the recruitment period of the 5 academies to find a martial artist with great talent. When will the 5 academies recruit students? Where is it? Nie Tian abruptly raised his head and asked Yin Wuqi with a burning gaze. In 5 days at the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. Yin Wuqi nodded and smiled when he saw Nie Tian's interest. The Southern Brilliance Sacred World is one of the top 3 sacred worlds in the All-Heaven Sacred World. All right, I'll participate. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he nodded. At this moment, Yin Wuqi gave a strange smile and said, Nie Tian, not everyone can participate in the recruitment of the 5 major institutes. The 5 academies recruit students once every 1,000 years, and there is a limit to the number of people who can participate in the recruitment. That's why you need an admission token to participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. Don't you have an admission token? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he asked. He didn't have time to keep Yin Wuqi in suspense. To him, time was everything. I do have an admission token, but why should I give it to you? Yin Wuqi smiled faintly and said, there are only 10 admission tokens for the 5 academies in the entire virtual Luo realm, and we, the Ghost Clan, only have 5 of them. I won't give such a precious item to anyone. Sixth uncle you. Jun Jianxing frowned and was about to say something, but Yin Wuqi glared at him and he swallowed his words. Senior, if you have something to say, just say it. Nie Tian frowned and said in a deep voice. How could he not tell that Yin Wuqi wanted to state a condition? Good. Straightforward enough. Yin Wuqi smiled and said, you can have the admission token, but you have to promise me 3 things. First, you will participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies in the name of the Ghost Yama tribe. If you're accepted by the 5 academies, the glory will belong to us, Ghost Clan. Sure. Nie Tian answered without hesitation. Second, you have to remember that you owe the Ghost Clan a favor. Yin Wuqi smiled faintly and continued. Yes. Nie Tian nodded. Third, I want something from you. Yin Wuqi's eyes flickered and he said in a deep voice. Nie Tian frowned and his expression changed. He asked in a deep voice, what is it? One of your eyes. Yin Wuqi's eyes flashed with a strange light as he stared straight into Nie Tian's eyes. Upon hearing Yin Wuqi's words, Nie Tian's face immediately darkened, becoming incomparably cold. He didn't expect Yin Wuqi to have such a big appetite. He wanted one of his eyes. What? You don't want it? Yin Wuqi's lips curled up into a cold smile as he asked. With a cold laugh, Nie Tian said in a grim voice, an entrance medallion is nothing to me. You can keep it for yourself. I don't want it anymore. That's right. Humph. At this moment, Yin Wuqi sneered and rose to his feet. His eyes were frosty and filled with killing intent as he said, Nie Tian, what if I insist on taking your eyes? You can try. Nie Tian frowned and stood up as well. His eyes were cold, and he was not afraid of Yin Wuqi at all. It was true that Yin Wuqi was Jun Jianxing's 6th uncle, and he had helped Nie Tian before. However, his request had crossed Nie Tian's bottom line. Young man, you're brave. Yin Wuqi sneered. The killing intent in his eyes became even more apparent. But courage cannot make up for the difference in strength. Chapter 3895. Boom! As soon as Yin Wuqi finished speaking, his aura burst out and soared into the sky. The surrounding void trembled, and the Mu residence's main hall shook violently, as if it was about to collapse. Jun Jianxing panicked when he saw Yin Wuqi's murderous aura. He did not expect Yin Wuqi to have such a strong murderous intent for Nie Tian all of a sudden. At this moment, Nie Tian felt an enormous pressure pressing down on him, as if a mountain was pressing down on his body, causing him to be unable to breathe. Yin Wuqi's strength was far beyond that of an ordinary cultivator. His martial cultivation had already broken through to the Heavenly Tribulation Saint King realm, and his sword Dao had reached the 9th Heavenly Tribulation Sword realm. He was only 1 step away from the Inverse Sword realm. Even an advanced Saint Emperor Tianyi would not be able to withstand the pressure from such an expert. Nie Tian, on the other hand, was bearing the brunt of it. His eyes were cold without any fear. Instead, they were surging with a strong battle intent. Yin Wuqi could feel the strong battle intent in Nie Tian's eyes. He said in a cold tone, I didn't expect you to have reached the 9th heaven of Heavenly Mandate Realm. 9th heaven of Heavenly Mandate Realm. Jun Jianxing, Mu Jiuchuan, and the others were stunned. They clearly did not expect Nie Tian to have reached the 9th heaven of Heavenly Mandate Realm. Not long ago, Nie Tian was only at the 5th heaven of Heavenly Mandate Realm. Now, he had reached the 9th heaven of Heavenly Mandate Realm. It was terrifying. What was even more strange was that they hadn't sensed it at all when Nie Tian had come to the lobby. That's right. Nie Tian had indeed reached the 9th heaven of Heavenly Mandate Realm. In the past few days, he had consolidated the Supreme Twin Seals and absorbed some of their power. His strength had made several breakthroughs. Moreover, his aura was affected by the power of the Supreme Twin Seals. He could hide his aura well An ordinary martial artist would not be able to sense his cultivation. However, when he released his aura, it was easy to see his cultivation. In just a few days, his strength had increased by several levels. This was simply too terrifying. However, this was all thanks to the power of the double seal. The power of the supreme double seal not only enhanced Nietian's strength, but also put a great deal of pressure on his martial body. This was the reason why his body was so weak after coming out of the ancestral land of 3 lives. You want to suppress me with your strength? Impossible. Nietian's eyes suddenly darkened as he growled in a cold, extremely arrogant manner. Bang! Following that, his body trembled as Yin Wuqi's oppressive aura was directly broken through. Yin Wuqi's body shuddered involuntarily as he stumbled back several steps, nearly losing his footing. How is this possible? Yin Wuqi's face sank. His eyes trembled uncontrollably, and his face was filled with shock. He had never imagined that Nietian would be so terrifying that he could directly break through his oppression. In the next moment, Yin Wuqi calmed down and said in a deep voice, Nietian, I only want your eyes. Are you really going to resist to the death? I will not give you my eyes, Nietianling said coldly, then said in a low voice, if you want to fight, I will accompany you to the end. To the end? Yin Wuqi's face darkened, and his eyes trembled involuntarily. If it were any other heavenly mandate realm warrior who said such words in front of him, he would definitely treat it as a joke. A mere heavenly mandate Saint Master was not qualified to accompany him, a heavenly tribulation Saint King, to the end. However, Nietian was different. He had seen Nietian's nature-defying strength with his own eyes. It had completely subverted his understanding of the martial way. At this moment, Nietian's eyes darkened, and he said in a cold voice, Yin Wuqi, you and I will fight to the death. The outcome is still uncertain. Yin Wuqi went blank for a moment. He actually sensed a hint of threat in Nietian's eyes, which made him feel as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat, making him feel very uncomfortable. Sixth uncle, what is going on? Jun Jianxing could not help but take a step forward and roared. Yin Wuqi frowned, and his aura gradually eased. He was much calmer now. After a long silence, he finally said, Jianxing, there is a crack in the ghost vein of our Yama demon clan. Ghost vein. Jun Jianxing heard these 2 words, and his face suddenly changed. He was stunned on the spot. He did not expect the situation to be so serious. Ghost vein? Nietian could not help but be stunned. He asked, what is that? Yin Wuqi sighed and did not speak. Instead, he looked at Jun Jianxing. Jun Jianxing frowned and said, the ghost vein is unique to our ghost clan. For every ghost clan, it is a supreme existence. It represents the continuation of the ghost vein. The ghost vein of the Yama demon clan is broken. To the Yama demon clan, it is the beginning of their decline. Nietian frowned and asked curiously, what does this have to do with my eye? Yin Wuqi's eyes trembled slightly. He said, your eye contains an aura similar to the ghost vein of the Yama demon clan. If the ghost vein absorbs the power of your eye, it may be able to repair the broken ghost vein. Perhaps? Nietian was stunned, and his face was extremely gloomy. Yin Wuqi wanted his eye to repair the ghost vein. He was not sure if the ghost vein could recover after absorbing the power of the demon eye. It was just a possibility. It was ridiculous to want Nietian's demon eye just for a possibility. Since it has come to this, forget it. Yin Wuqi let out a long sigh and said, I don't want to make a strong enemy for the Yama demon clan. I don't want your eye anymore. Nietian's face was gloomy, and he did not speak. Sixth uncle, did you come out this time to find a way to repair the ghost vein? At this time, Jun Jianxing took a step forward and asked. In fact, he had been wondering why Yin Wuqi had appeared to save him. Ghost clansmen usually did not leave the ghost domain. Moreover, Yin Wuqi's position in the ghost Yama demon clan was very high. It was even more impossible for him to leave on his own. Yin Wuqi nodded helplessly. He had already given up on taking Nietian's eye. He suddenly felt that it was not a wise move. Sixth uncle, do you have the ghost vein with you? Jun Jianxing frowned and asked Yin Wuqi with a burning gaze. Yin Wuqi nodded again. Suddenly, he noticed that Jun Jianxing's gaze was a little strange. He frowned and asked, Jianxing, what do you want? Sixth uncle, if you trust me, please give me the ghost vein. I will definitely find a way to repair it. Jun Jianxing's gaze was firm as he said in a low voice. Yin Wuqi's gaze hardened, and his face became gloomy. He did not speak for a long time. Chapter 3896. Yin Wuqi's face was gloomy. He was obviously thinking. Jun Jianxing's eyes darkened. After a while, he couldn't help but say, Sixth uncle, I know you've never treated me as a member of the Yamagos tribe, but I have the blood of the ghost race in me. I don't want to see my ghost vein broken. I want you to believe me, because it's me. This is my chance to return to the Yamagos tribe. Yin Wuqi frowned and asked, You want to repair the ghost vein so you can return to the Yamagos tribe? Yes. Jun Jianxing nodded solemnly, his face determined. He was expelled from the Yamagos tribe when he was 6 years old. Although the Yamagos tribe didn't treat him as a member, he didn't forget that he had the blood of the Yamagos tribe. He hoped to repair the ghost vein and return to the Yamagos tribe. All right, I'll give you the ghost vein. Yin Wuqi thought for a long time and finally made a decision. He said, This time, you will represent the Yamagos tribe and participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. Yes. Jun Jianxing's eyes lit up with excitement. He nodded and said, Thank you, sixth uncle. I won't let you down. I hope so. Yin Wuqi smiled bitterly. He took out a black object and handed it to Jun Jianxing. Jianxing, this is the ghost vein of the Yamagos tribe. It's more important than your life. You must take good care of it. Yes. Jun Jianxing took the ghost vein and nodded. Nie Tian looked at the ghost vein in confusion. He didn't sense any aura from it. It seemed that the aura of the ghost vein had been concealed by some kind of seal. Here are 2 entrance tokens for the 5 academies. Give them to the 2 of you. Then, Yin Wuqi took out 2 tokens and handed them to Jun Jianxing and Nie Tian. He lowered his head to Nie Tian and said, Nie Tian, I'm sorry about what happened just now. It's fine. Nie Tian took the medallion, nodded, and said, Since I've accepted the medallion, your 2 conditions are still valid. As for repairing the ghost vein, I will also help Jun Jianxing. Many thanks. Yin Wuqi nodded sincerely. At this moment, Qi Chanfeng, who was standing off to the side, asked anxiously, Lord Nie Tian, what about me? Obviously, he also wanted to participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. Senior, do you still have an entry token? Nie Tian glanced at Qi Chanfeng and asked Yin Wuqi. Next, he planned to bring Yin Wuqi along to learn more about the angel tribe. Here, Yin Wuqi glanced at Qi Chanfeng. Of course, he understood Nie Tian's intention. He took out a token and threw it to Qi Chanfeng. Thank you, Senior. Qi Chanfeng took the token and nodded in gratitude. Following that, Jun Jianxing and Mu Jiuchuan spoke for a while before Nie Tian and the rest left the Mu abode for the Southern Brilliant Sacred World. After Yin Wuqi sent Nie Tian and the others into the Sacred World net, he immediately left. The Southern Brilliant Sacred World was one of the few top-tier sacred worlds in the All-Heaven Sacred World. Nie Tian and the others had the entry token of the 5 academies, so they were qualified to enter the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. However, Yin Wuqi was already a Heavenly Tribulation King sage, so it was impossible for him to enter the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. Nie Tian, I hope you won't disappoint me. Yin Wuqi murmured in his heart as he looked at the place where Nie Tian and the others disappeared. At the same time, Nie Tian and the others arrived in a completely unfamiliar environment the moment they disappeared from the space-time formation. The 3 of them were hovering in midair. Below them was a lush, boundless mountain range. It was a spectacular sight. Is this the top-tier sacred world? Qi Chanfeng exclaimed as he looked around. Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing were calm, but they were also delighted. The top-tier sacred world was the highest level of sacred world. The saint energy contained in its space was incomparable to other sacred worlds. Nie Tian stood quietly in midair. He could feel the surging aura of the saint energy around him. It was like a worm trying to enter his body through his pores. This was why the top-tier sacred world was superior to other sacred worlds. With the same amount of cultivation time, cultivating in a top-tier sacred world was more than 10 times more effective than cultivating in a high-tier sacred world. It was even more terrifying when compared to a middle-tier sacred world or a low-tier sacred world. Lord Nyetian, where are we going now? After a while, Chi Chunfeng calmed down and asked Nyetian. It was all thanks to Nyetian that he was able to come to a top-tier sacred world. If it wasn't for Nyetian, he wouldn't have been qualified to participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. Hence, after coming to the Southern Brilliant Sacred World, he had to follow Nyetian's lead. The recruitment of the 5 academies is taking place in Vast Cloud Sacred City. Let's go there now, Nyetian said with a faint smile. This, Chi Chinfeng's face stiffened. He said, Lord Nyetian, we've just arrived at the Southern Brilliant Sacred World. We don't even know the directions. How are we going to get to Vast Cloud Sacred City? Nyetian frowned and let out a bitter smile. He had never thought of this problem. Yin Wuqi only told him that the recruitment of the 5 academies was taking place in Vast Cloud Sacred City. He didn't tell him how to get there. Let's find the nearest city first. We'll ask the others when we see them, Jun Jinxing said with a faint smile. All right, Nyetian nodded. This was the only stupid way at the moment. Lord Nyetian, look. At this moment, Chi Chanfeng suddenly screamed and pointed at a place far away. Nyetian's eyebrows furrowed as he looked in the direction Chi Chanfeng was pointing at. What he saw was a gigantic crimson flying beast that was thousands of meters long and had a wingspan of thousands of meters. It looked like a dazzling sunset. So fast. Jun Jinxing also looked over and exclaimed. The red bird was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived above them. Of course, this is the unique flying mount of our Blazing Feather clan, Blazing Feather Fire. Chi Chunfeng chuckled and shouted towards the sky. Friend, I'm from the Blazing Feather clan. Come down and pick me up. Nyetian's lips curled into a smile. No wonder Chi Chunfeng was so excited. He had met someone from the same clan. Whoosh! At this moment, as expected, the gigantic bird swooped down with an astonishing momentum, stirring up clouds and clouds in the air. Instantly, wind and thunder howled, as though the heavens were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. They're really here. Chi Chunfeng chuckled with a proud expression. Get out of the way. At that moment, Nyetian sensed that something was wrong. With a bellow, he sprang into action. Like a streak of light, he pushed the blazing wind thousands of meters away from him. Boom! At this moment, a red flame fell from the sky like a huge fireball passing by them. This! Chi Chunfeng steadied himself. His eyes were shaking and his heart was still fluttering with fear. He only stopped these people because he wanted to catch a ride. He didn't expect these people to want to kill him. Chapter 3897. High up in the sky, the white-clothed warrior looked gloomy. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Chi Chunfeng. Chi Chunfeng's face stiffened as he felt the intense, murderous intent. He was speechless. The frightening scene just now had left a lingering fear in his heart. The martial artist in white clearly wanted to kill him. But why? He was a member of the Blazing Wing clan, the same clan as the other party. He was just trying to get along. Why did the other party want to kill him? This kid thinks he's from the Blazing Wing clan and dares to stop young Master Chio's mount. He's courting death. At this moment, a figure in green came behind the martial artist in white and stared at Chi Chunfeng cold with a sneer. I was wrong. Chi Chunfeng's eyes were trembling and his teeth were chattering. He didn't expect that blocking a mount would be such a serious crime. Eyes. At this time, the white-robed martial artist named young Master Chio opened his mouth and said coldly, What? Chi Chunfeng was stunned and confused. He didn't know what the martial artist in white meant. Your eyes. The white-robed cultivator had a cold expression as he said expressionlessly, This young master wants your eyes as an apology. This. Chi Chunfeng's eyes trembled. He didn't expect this. He had only blocked the other party's path, yet he had to pay the price of his eyes. The other party's actions were a little too cruel. Chi Chunfeng's eyes were trembling. The fear in his heart was written all over his face. He couldn't help looking at Nyetian for help. Tian watched from the side with a gloomy face. He had already sensed the martial artist in White's strength. He was a Tianni 5th-tier great sage. This strength wasn't strong, but the martial artist in White was very young. He should be much younger than Qi Chenfeng. His actual age should be below 500 years old. 500 years old was a very young age for a Saint Realm warrior. To be able to reach Tianni 5th tier at such a young age, the martial artist in White must be very talented. What was more frightening was that the martial artist in White's aura was much stronger than Qi Chenfeng's. It should be known that Qi Chenfeng was a level 9 heavenly righteousness martial artist, and he was from the same clan as the white-clothed martial artist. However, his aura was far weaker than the white-clothed martial artists. Looking at it this way, the white-clothed martial artist was even more terrifying. At this moment, Tian took a step forward and stared at the white-clothed martial artist. He did stop you, but he was just passing by. Don't you think it's too much for you to kill him the moment you arrive? At this moment, Tian took a step forward and stared at the white-clothed martial artist. Too much. The white-robed Qi Qiu's gaze sank as he said coldly. He blocked this young master's mouth. That is too much. This young master didn't kill him and only took his eyes. That's already very merciful. Tian frowned. This person was really arrogant to the point that he was born in his mother's womb. If he wanted someone's eyes, he could say that it was benevolent. Indeed, in Qi Qiu's opinion, it was already benevolent of him to spare Qi Chenfeng. If it had been his usual style, he would have killed Qi Chenfeng, and even Tian and Jun Jianxing, who were with Qi Chenfeng, would have suffered as well. He was in a good mood today, as he was going to participate in the recruitment of the 5 great academies. That was why he showed mercy. What if he's unwilling? Tian's eyes darkened as he said coldly, "Then all of you will die." Qi Qiu's eyes suddenly turned cold. When he said the word die, his aura instantly skyrocketed. Suddenly, a sea of fire appeared in the space behind him. The space around him immediately became scorching hot, like a furnace. He's from the same clan as you, yet you're still so cruel. If you meet someone else, won't you be even more cruel? Tian's eyes darkened, and he said directly, "If you want to fight, then I'll accompany you. You, a piece of trash in the 9th tier of the heavenly mandate realm, dare to be so arrogant in front of me?" Qi Qiu sneered, and his eyes surged with murderous intent. Then he took a step forward, and the sea of fire behind him moved. Suddenly, it condensed into a giant flaming hand, pressing down on Tian. Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and sword intent surged from all over his body. The sword momentum was shocking, and the sword's shadow whistled like a dragon, directly smashing the giant flaming hand. However, his figure was pushed back dozens of meters under the impact of the violent flame power. After repelling Tian with one palm, Qi Qiu's eyes were not filled with joy, but deep shock. His palm just now would have killed an ordinary saint in the 5th tier of the heavenly mandate realm. However, Tian only had the strength of the 9th tier of the heavenly mandate realm, and yet he was able to block his palm. This was really strange. He blocked it. How is it possible? On the fire of the Qi feather behind Qi Qiu, more than a dozen young warriors of the Blazing Feather clan exclaimed in shock when they saw this scene. Obviously, they did not expect that Tian could actually block Qi Qiu's palm. Qi Qiu was a young genius of the Blazing Feather clan. When facing warriors of the same level, he always had the upper hand. When facing warriors of a lower level, he could basically kill them instantly. However, this silver-haired warrior in front of him was obviously not simple. "Just now, I'll let you off with that palm." At this time, Tian took a step forward and said in a cold tone, "If you attack again, don't blame me for being impolite." Impolite? Qi Qiu was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he did not expect that Tian would dare to speak to him in such a tone. He immediately became furious and roared, "Brat, I want to see how impolite you can be." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Qiu's figure moved instantly. The sea of fire behind him became even more violent, directly condensing into a giant flaming beast. It roared like thunder and pounced ferociously, pressing down on Yetian. Lord Yetian, be careful. Qi Chenfeng's expression changed when he sensed the terrifying aura approaching, and he hurriedly cried out. He did not expect that this clansman of his would actually be so powerful. Nie Tianling stood in the void, but he was as still as a mountain. Just as the giant flaming beast was about to fall, he finally moved. The sky sword pierced straight through the void. Immediately, endless sword intent surged out, and the sword cry pierced through the clouds and rocks, penetrating everything. Bang! In the next moment, the sword shadow fell. The giant flaming beast was unable to withstand the sword intent's might and directly collapsed, turning into waves of fire that dissipated. Bang! After that, Qi Qiu didn't even have the chance to react at all before his figure was blasted flying, and he left behind a bloody trail in space. Young Master Qiu. This shocking scene shocked everyone present on the spot. After a long time, the members of the Blazing Feather Clan finally reacted and cried out in unison. In midair, Qi Qiu stabilized his figure. There was a horrifying bloody hole in his chest, and half of his body was dripping with blood. If this sword had been half an inch to the side, he would have been pierced through the heart and died. Chapter 3898. Nie Tian did not kill Qi Qiu not because he was soft-hearted, but because he had other considerations. Qi Qiu was a member of the Blazing Feather race, and from his appearance, his status in the Blazing Feather race should not be low. Next, Nie Tian would have to deal with the Angel race, so he did not want to form a grudge with the Blazing Feather race. Because of this, he did not kill Qi Qiu. You deserve to die. Qi Qiu snapped out of his daze and stared at Nie Tian with eyes filled with terrifying flames of fury. Then, he let out a furious roar like a wild beast. Immediately afterwards, his body shook, and a pair of flame wings appeared on his back. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he could not help but exclaim in surprise. He sensed a powerful bloodline presence from the flame wings behind Qi Qiu's back. The flame aura of that pair of flame wings was much stronger than before, and the surrounding sky seemed to burn. The terrifying presence seemed to want to devour everything. Angel wings! At the same time, Qi Chenfeng's eyes shook when he saw this scene, and he shouted in shock. He had never thought that Qi Qiu would form angel wings. The flame wings behind Qi Qiu were not an ordinary bloodline power, but the strongest angel wings of the angel race. Qi Chenfeng could also form flame wings with the power of fire in his body, but they were not angel wings and could not compare to Qi Qiu's angel wings. Angel wings. And yet Tian frowned, his expression changing slightly. He vaguely remembered that EMO of the Frostfiend Wings race had once formed a pair of ice wings, and that bloodline aura seemed to be similar to Qi Qiu's bloodline aura. Could the ice wings that EMO had formed back then also be angel wings? At this time, the Blazing Feather Race martial practitioners saw Qi Qiu use angel wings, and their expressions changed to shock and fear. I really did not think that young Master Qiu would form angel wings. Angel wings is the strongest bloodline power of the angel race. Young Master Qiu is indeed a genius of the Blazing Feather Race. Young Master Qiu is using angel wings. With his strength, can his martial body withstand it? Some were shocked, some were worried, but their eyes were shining with hot light, clearly looking forward to the next battle. Brat, you're dead meat. High up in the sky, Qi Qiu let out a roar, and his aura erupted in an instant. Immediately, the violent power of fire condensed into a flaming storm that raged like a raging sea. Come on. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and his face darkened. However, there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was a strong desire to fight. He had just fused the Supreme Twin Seals not too long ago, so it was a good time for him to test out his current strength. Courting death. Qi Qiu's roar was like thunder. His angel wings trembled in the void, and suddenly, two flaming storms appeared, pressing down on Nie Tian. Boom! Boom! Wherever the terrifying flaming storm passed, the air turned misty, as if it was about to melt. Under such a frightening attack, an ordinary warrior would probably be burned to ashes. Nie Tianling stood in the air, sword while surging around him like a giant sword, incomparably sharp. Rumble! Just as the two firestorms descended, the clear sky, sword in Nie Tian's hand, furiously slashed out. The sword's shadow was like a mountain, erupting with destructive power. The void rumbled unceasingly, and heaven and earth shook unceasingly. In the next instant, Nie Tian retreated frantically. He felt the blazing aura of fire penetrate his sword-will barrier and corrode his martial body like maggots in his bones. He didn't expect the power of angel wings to be so strong. Boom! Immediately, the dragon energy in his body surged, and he used the ancestral dragon energy to forcefully break through the invasion of the power of fire. On the other side, Chichio retreated 1,000 meters away. Under the impact of the terrifying sword will, a few more wounds appeared on his body. His entire body looked like a bloody mess. It was a tragic sight. How is this possible? Such a scene shocked the people of the Blazing Feather Clan. Their eyes trembled violently, and their faces were full of disbelief. They didn't expect that Chichio, who had activated his angel wings, was still no match for Nie Tian. Chichio was a genius of the Blazing Feather Clan, a fifth-tier heavenly righteousness great saint, but he couldn't stop a heavenly mandate saint master. This was too terrifying. At this time, Nie Tian steadied himself and stared at Chichio cold. He asked in a deep voice, "Do you still want to fight?" "Damn it!" Chichio roared like thunder. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was obviously enraged to the extreme. He yelled, "Brat, if I don't kill you today, my name isn't Chichio." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, his body trembled, and a strange scene occurred. A second pair of flame wings appeared on his back. This! Chi Chenfeng's eyes trembled when he saw this scene. His face froze, and he was completely speechless. He didn't even dream that Chichio had condensed a second pair of angel wings. Chichio's bloodline power was so powerful that it was too terrifying. With his age and cultivation, he could already condense 2 pairs of angel wings. Wouldn't he have a chance to become a 4-winged angel, or even a 5-winged angel, or even an even more powerful angel? In the next moment, Chi Chenfeng came to a realization. His eyes trembled with shock, and his face collapsed. He didn't think that Nie Tian had the ability to fight against a 2-winged angel. Young Master Chioi. At the same time, the other martialists of the Blazing Feather Clan were also shocked, and they were completely speechless. Chichio condensed a second pair of angel wings. This was really beyond their expectations. With Chichio's strength, could he withstand the pressure of 2 pairs of angel wings? Nie Tian looked at the 2 pairs of angel wings on Chichio's back, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. He could feel a strong sense of threat from the 2 pairs of angel wings. Perhaps even his ancestral dragon Chi might not be able to withstand the 2 pairs of angel wings. Die! At this moment, Chichio roared, and his figure moved. The 2 pairs of angel wings on his back flapped, and suddenly, a boundless flaming storm appeared. It pressed down on the void and directly blasted towards Nie Tian. "Watch out!" Jun Jianxing instantly sensed the danger and couldn't help but cry out. However, in the next moment, an extremely strange scene happened. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. In the distant void, an extremely cold aura appeared, and wherever it passed, time and space were directly frozen and solidified. Then, an even more terrifying scene happened. Wah! Crack, crack, crack. The cold aura descended and instantly enveloped the flaming storm. Then, the violent flaming storm was also frozen, forming a strange scene of fire within ice in the air. This sudden scene made Nie Tian's eyes narrow slightly. He looked up into the sky and immediately sensed an aura, and he couldn't help but feel happy. How is this possible? On the other side, Chichio shouted in horror, and his face was filled with horror and fear. Chapter 3899. Ice-type Angelic Bloodline Power. Chichio's eyes trembled as he looked up into the sky. The scene that greeted him completely stunned him. A figure that resembled an iceberg appeared in the sky. Wherever the figure passed, the world froze, and a bone-chilling frost aura enveloped the surrounding space for hundreds of thousands of meters. The most terrifying thing was that the figure actually had 3 pairs of wings of ice on its back. He was not mistaken. Those were indeed 3 pairs of wings of ice, and they were angel wings. 3 pairs of angel wings. That was a 3-winged angel. It was no wonder that it could directly freeze his firestorm. A 3-winged angel. On the other side, the eyes of the blazing wings trembled violently when they saw the figure of the iceberg. The shock in their hearts was completely written on their faces. How could they have imagined that they would actually see a 3-winged angel at this moment? Less than 1 in 10 cultivators in the angel race with bloodline power powerful enough to condense angel wings. And those who could condense more than 2 pairs of angel wings were even rarer. That was why they were so shocked when they saw Chi-Chiu condense 2 pairs of angel wings. At this moment, a 3-winged angel had actually appeared. Their shock could be imagined. "So it's him," Nietian murmured with a faint smile as he looked at the figure in the sky. He was no stranger to the wings of ice behind the figure. They were the demonic frost wings unique to the demonic frost wings. The aura of that figure was extremely familiar to him, because that figure was none other than EMO. Nietian never thought that he would actually encounter EMO here. It was truly an unexpected joy. "Break!" At this moment, a deep voice rang out in the sky. Then, the frozen, flaming storm in the void shattered, turning into waves of air that dissipated. Immediately after, a silhouette appeared. He was like an ice mountain, exuding a terrifying aura of coldness. The 3 pairs of wings on his back fluttered, as if he could freeze the entire world with just a wave of his hand. Nietian looked at the figure and could not help but smile faintly. It was EMO. When EMO left Nietian, he must have gone directly to the holy world with Niechingwan. At this moment, EMO had undergone a complete transformation compared to when they had first separated. He was no longer as short as before and had grown to the size of a normal person. He was even more burly than an ordinary warrior. Furthermore, the icy aura emanating from his body even made Nietian feel threatened. His cultivation was the same as Nietian's, reaching the 9th level of the heavenly mandate realm. Nietian, long time no see. At this moment, EMO looked at Nietian and spoke in a clear voice. His aura moved slightly, and the surrounding space trembled as if it was about to collapse. Compared to before, his eyes were no longer as sinister, but there was still a deep chill hidden in them. "Long time no see." Nietian smiled and nodded with a smile. Jun Jianxing and Qi Chunfeng could not help but be stunned when they saw this scene. They were stunned and could not react for a long time. They were wondering who this expert who suddenly appeared was, but they did not expect it to be someone Nietian knew. What was more terrifying was that this expert was a warrior of the Angel Clan. Moreover, he was an Angel Clan that Qi Chunfeng had never heard of. He never knew that there was such a powerful ice clan among the Angel Clan. "Who are you?" At this moment, Chi-Chiu was much calmer. He roared like a wild beast and stared at EMO with a pair of extremely gloomy eyes. He wanted to eat the other party. EMO's sudden appearance had not only interrupted his plan to kill Nietian, but also completely stolen his thunder. He had condensed 2 pairs of angel wings, which was already the limit of his power. However, EMO had 3 pairs of angel wings and did not even feel pressured at all. He had completely overshadowed his genius. In front of EMO, he no longer looked like a genius, but an idiot. "A member of the Blazing Wing clan, is it?" EMO looked at Chi-Chiu and sneered coldly. He said, "I originally thought your Blazing Wing clan was very powerful, but looks like this is all there is to you. Which race of angels are you from?" Chi-Chiu's face sank as he growled. "Baleful Winged Clan," EMO said sternly as a cold light surged through his eyes. "Baleful Winged Clan?" When Chi-Chiu heard that, his face could not help but change. He was shocked and cried out, "That's impossible. The Baleful Wing Clan was expelled from the Saints' world a long time ago. You can't be a member of the Baleful Winged Clan." The Baleful Wing Clan was a taboo name among angels. They had been expelled from the saints' world a long time ago and were never allowed to return. It was no wonder that Chichio found this angel cultivator so unfamiliar. Chichio refused to believe that the person before him was a member of the baleful Wing clan. Humph. Emo sneered as if he did not want to pay too much attention to Chichio. He said coldly, "Trash of the blazing Wing clan, piss off before I lose my temper." Chichio's face sank, and killing intent surged through his eyes. He said sternly, "Stinking brat, who do you think you are? How dare you speak to this young master like that?" He could already sense that Emo's strength was only at the 9th level of the heavenly mandate realm. He felt that if they really fought head-on, he might not lose to the other party. Humph. The corner of Emo's mouth twitched, and he sneered again. "Do you want to fight me? Brat, if you really are a member of the baleful Wing clan, this young master will kill you right now and clean up the mess for my angel clan." Chicho laughed madly and took a step forward. The flame wings on his back flapped, and the surrounding space trembled as a scorching aura spread out. "Is that so?" Emo smiled coldly, and a sharp glint flashed through his eyes. Immediately, terrifying frost intent surged in the surrounding space, enveloping out like a surging wave. Boom! In the next moment, two terrifying auras collided with each other, causing the space around them to tremble as if it was about to collapse. Ice and fire collided. Frost and fire intertwined, forming a strange boundary between ice and fire. Heaven and earth were perfectly divided into two worlds. It looked extremely strange. Chi, chi, chi. As the two forces collided, the ice blue and the fiery red caused the world to be covered in a magnificent color. Nyetion and the others could not help but be shocked when they saw this scene. Emo and Chichio were fighting with the power of their bloodlines. This was something that no one had expected. Emo's advantage lay in the power of his bloodline, while Chichio's cultivation was stronger. For a moment, the battle of ice and fire was evenly matched. Chapter 3900. Boom! High up in the sky, the three pairs of angel wings on Emo's back suddenly flapped. Immediately, an extremely cold, murderous aura surged out and condensed into a sharp frost storm in the air. It erupted with a terrifying aura as if it wanted to freeze the entire world. Boom! Then, the power of ice and fire welcomed the most direct and extreme collision. There was an explosion in the air, and the world seemed to collapse. Boom! In just an instant, the power of fire was completely defeated. The cold, murderous aura turned into a wild wind that engulfed everything. In the next instant, a baleful ice storm flashed by, causing the heavens and the earth to be covered in ice. Chichio didn't even have the time to react before he was frozen in midair. The sudden scene caused the members of the Blaze Wing clan to be stunned, and they gasped in unison. They stared at Chichio and were completely speechless. They could already see that Emo's bloodline power was stronger than Chichio's, but they didn't expect the difference between the two to be so great. Chichio had an absolute advantage in cultivation, but in front of Emo, he couldn't withstand a single blow. The strength of Emo's bloodline was shocking. Nyetion looked at Emo in the sky and was also shocked. He didn't expect Emo to be so strong. Even he might not be able to suppress Chichio in an instant. "I don't want to kill anyone. Leave the blazing feather fire behind and scram." At this time, Emo spoke in a very arrogant tone. His voice was like a clap of thunder in the ears of the people from the Blazing Feather clan. They reacted and nodded in shock. They did not even dare to raise their heads to look at Emo. At this time, Chichio slowly broke free from the ice, but his face was as pale as paper. He looked at Emo with trembling eyes and said solemnly, "Your name?" "Cold Murderous Wings Race. Emo," Emo said with a cold expression. "Good. Emo, this young master will remember this name." Chichio's eyes were murderous. He said this coldly and then left with a blazing wing race. "It's good that you remember it." Emo looked in the direction where Chichio disappeared and smiled with a playful expression. Since he dared to let Chichio leave, He wasn't afraid of the latter's revenge. Nyetian, you really have come to the saint's world. Afterwards, Emo arrived beside Nyetian with a movement and laughed heartily. His current demeanor was no longer as cold as before. Instead, it was much more cheerful. He already knew that Nyetian would definitely come to the saint's world, but he never thought he would come so quickly. What surprised him even more was that Nyetian had the same cultivation level as him. After all, the reason why he possessed his current strength was because he had come to the saint's world very early and encountered various fortuitous encounters. However, Nyetian had spent less time in the saint's world than him, yet he still possessed such a high cultivation. It was rather unbelievable. Emo, it's great to see you again. Nyetian smiled faintly. He was happy from the bottom of his heart. There was already a candidate for Rui Qianyu's 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline. With Emo's talent, he was definitely qualified to awaken Rui Qianyu's bloodline. I'm very happy as well. Emo smiled faintly. Afterwards, he glanced past Jun Jianxing and Qi Chanfeng and said, "Looks like you come to take part in the recruitment of the 5 academies as well, right?" "That's right." Nyetian smiled faintly. "Now that I mention it, it's a little embarrassing. We don't know where Vast Cloud's sacred city is. Originally, we wanted to stop that guy from before and hitch a ride, but we never thought he would try to take our lives without any explanation. That's why we had some conflict. The people of the Blazing Wing clan are used to being arrogant. It's nothing strange." Emo smiled faintly before looking at Qi Chunfeng and saying, "You're also a member of the Blazing Wing clan. Looking at your age, you should be from a medium saint's world." Yes, Qi Chunfeng had personally witnessed Emo's terror, so he dared not to show any disrespect. He nodded repeatedly. "Not only do you cultivators of the Blazing Wing clan look down on other cultivators, but they also look down on your clansmen who come from lower saints' worlds." Emo smiled and said indifferently, "Yeah." Qi Chunfeng nodded bitterly. He had already witnessed it with his own eyes. He treated Yi Futian as a clansman, but Yi Futian treated him like trash and tried to kill him. They did not treat him as a clansman or even a human. "You have the body of a ghost?" Then Emo looked at Jun Jianxing and his eyes narrowed slightly. He could not help but cry out in surprise. "Yeah." Jun Jianxing nodded. He was very surprised. He did not think that Emo's senses would be so powerful. "You 3 are interesting. One from the Blazing Wing clan, one has the body of a ghost, and the last one is the strongest taboo." Emo smiled faintly and teased. "Emo, you're also taking part in the recruitment of the 5 academies, right? Let's go to the sacred city of the sky first. We'll talk on the way." Nyetian nodded and said directly, "All right." Emo agreed. Then, everyone stepped onto the Blazing Feather. The Blazing Feather was a flying mount unique to the Blazing Wing clan. It was difficult for normal people to control it, but Emo controlled it with ease. Even Qi Chanfeng was shocked by the sight. After all, even Qi Chanfeng, a member of the Blazing Wing clan, could not control a blazing feather at will. "Looks like this guy has experienced a lot these years." Nyetian looked at Emo and thought to himself, "Emo, is Qinghua not with you?" Nyetian could not help but ask. He only saw Emo and did not see Nye Qinghuan, so he could not help but worry. "Don't worry, Qinghuan is with our teacher. They should be in the sacred city of the sky now." Emo smiled and said excitedly, "I haven't seen Qinghuan for a long time too. I wonder how strong she is now." "Teacher?" Nyetian went blank for a moment. He couldn't help but frown and ask, "Your teacher?" "Yes." Emo nodded and said, "We met our teacher when we first came to the sacred world. If it were not for her, we would not have achieved what we have today." "I see." Nyetian nodded and smiled. He did not expect Emo and Nye Qinghuan to have a teacher. Then, they set off for the sacred city of the sky. Along the way, Nyetian asked Emo about some things and also asked about the 5 academies. 3 days later, they finally arrived at the legendary sacred city of the sky. Floating high in the sky, Nyetian looked down and saw a magnificent ancient city lying on the ground like a giant beast from the desolate antiquity era. Nyetian had seen countless majestic cities, but they were nothing compared to the ancient city of the sky. He estimated that the ancient city of the sky was tens of thousands of miles wide. The outer walls were tall and thick, and they were reinforced with special formations. Even the sky martial divine ancestors would not be able to destroy the walls. Chapter 3901. The Aura of a Star Lord. Nyetion's eyes trembled slightly, and his expression changed. He did not expect to see the aura of a Star Lord here. But the Star Lord's aura disappeared in a flash. He only felt the existence of this aura. When he wanted to continue sensing this aura, it disappeared. Huh? Nyetion was puzzled. He glanced around, and his expression became somewhat strange. The Star Lord's aura disappeared in a flash. It seemed to want to tell him that there was a Star Lord here, but it did not want to expose its identity. Nyetion looked around for a long time and did not find anything unusual. He could only shake his head helplessly. It seemed that the other party did not want to show up at this time. It seems that we are a little early. The holy city in the sky is not open yet. At this time, Emo looked at the holy city in the sky below and said with a bitter smile, "Not open." Nyetion frowned when he heard Emo's words. He immediately sensed that the entire holy city in the sky was covered by a huge barrier. The barrier was like a barrier that protected the holy city in the sky. When the barrier was not open, outsiders could not enter the holy city in the sky. Do we have to wait for the holy city in the sky to open before we can enter? Jun Jinxing frowned and was obviously dissatisfied. Emo smiled helplessly and said, "The Southern Glory Holy World is a top holy world, and the holy city in the sky is one of the two main cities in the Southern Glory Holy World. Even during normal times, not everyone can enter. Although it is the recruitment period for the 5 academies, it is not easy for outsiders to enter the holy city in the sky before the recruitment begins. It seems that the holy city in the sky is really extraordinary." Nyetion smiled faintly. He did not expect that they were not even qualified to enter the city. But it doesn't matter. The 5 academies' joint recruitment will begin in a few days. It is fine for us to wait. Emo smiled faintly. Then he looked at Nyetion and asked, "Nyetion, you don't look like someone who likes to cultivate in academies. Why have you taken a fancy to one of the 5 academies?" Although Emo had not interacted much with Nyetion, he could tell that Nyetion was not the kind of person who was willing to be restricted by a certain cultivation method. Therefore, he was a little curious as to why Nyetion would participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. "Actually, I came to the Southern Brilliance Sacred World for something else. Participating in the recruitment of the 5 academies was just a convenience," said Nyetion with a faint smile. "Brother Emo, you should have a good understanding of the 5 great academies, right? Why don't you tell us the differences between the 5 great academies?" Chi Chenfeng chuckled and looked at Emo. "All right." Emo nodded and said, "The all-heaven sacred world is vast and boundless. There are many martial academies in it, but there are only 5 academies that stand at the peak. They are the Dragon Academy, the Bloodwing Academy, the 10 Directions Academy, the Myriad Martial Academy, and the Heavenly Law Martial Palace. As the name suggests, the Dragon Academy has many disciples from the Dragon Clan. Even the higher-ups of the Academy are mostly from the Dragon Clan. However, the Academy does not discriminate against cultivators who are not from the Dragon Clan. On the contrary, they are very welcoming. Even cultivators from other clans are given special treatment in the Dragon Academy. However, the Dragon Academy mainly consists of cultivators from the Dragon Clan. Therefore, outsiders have to consider carefully if they wish to enter the Academy. The situation of the Bloodwing Academy was similar to the Dragon Academy. Most of the cultivators in the Academy were from the Angel Clan. The higher-ups of the Academy were also experts from the Angel Clan. Even the name of the Bloodwing Academy came from a supreme sacred artifact of the Angel Clan, the Bloodwing Academy. The difference between the Dragon Academy and the Bloodwing Academy is that the Bloodwing Academy discriminates against cultivators from other clans. If an outsider wants to enter the Bloodwing Academy, he or she must have outstanding strength. Based on its name, the 10 Directions Academy accepts cultivators from all over the world. However, the prerequisite is that your background must be noble enough. Compared to other academies, the 10 Directions Academy not only values a cultivator's martial talent, but also their background. Let's put it this way. No matter how heaven-defying your talent is, it's impossible for a cultivator born in the mid-rank sacred world to enter the 10 Directions Academy. At this point, Emo's gaze involuntarily swept across Nyation and the others. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Don't have any illusions about the 10 Directions Academy. What kind of rule is this to look at a cultivator's background?" Jun Jinxing frowned and said indignantly. He had never heard of a martial academy looking at a cultivator's background when recruiting students. This was not recruiting based on strength, but on background. It's useless even if you're dissatisfied. The 10 Directions Academy is a noble academy. Emo smiled bitterly and continued. The Myriad Arts Academy should be the most suitable for us. The purpose of the 10,000 Martial Academy is to respect martial arts. This academy truly educates everyone without discrimination. No matter who you are, as long as your strength and talent are high enough, you can enter the academy. Because of this, the 10,000 Martial Academy not only has cultivators from the mid-rank sacred world and the primary sacred world, but also some ruthless and desperate people. In short, the 10,000 Martial Academy respects martial arts. As long as your strength and talent are high enough, everything else is negotiable. When Yutan heard what Emo said, he could not help but frown and said, "Does the 10,000 Martial Academy also want those cruel and bloodthirsty people?" Of course. Emo smiled and said, "However, the 10,000 Martial Academy has its own rules. No matter how evil a person is, once he enters the 10,000 Martial Academy, he must obediently follow the rules." So that's how it is. Nyetion's gaze sank slightly. He nodded and said, "It seems that the 10,000 Martial Academy is indeed more suitable for us than the previous 3 academies." Yes. Emo nodded and continued. "As for the 5th Academy, the Heavenly Law Martial Palace, it is the most difficult to enter out of the 5 great academies because the higher-ups behind it are people from the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion." The Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. When Nyetion heard this name, he could not help but tremble and exclaim in surprise. He did not expect that the Heavenly Law Martial Palace was actually backed by the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. That's right. He was not unfamiliar with the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. He had even seen the experts of this faction before. In the entire all-heaven sacred world, there was only one super faction that truly stood at the peak, and that was the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. Heavens! The Heavenly Law Martial Palace was supported by the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion, so it was normal for it to be difficult to enter. It seems like you have already heard of the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. When Emo saw Nyetion's reaction, he smiled and said, "The Heavenly Law Martial Palace is the strongest among the 5 great academies. Moreover, those who enter the Heavenly Law Martial Palace have the opportunity to enter the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. This is the dream of countless cultivators." Nyetion smiled and nodded. After all, he had no interest in the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion or the Heavenly Law Martial Palace. "Nyetion, which academy do you want to enter?" Emo's eyes slightly trembled as he looked at Nyetion with excitement. "What about you?" Nyetion did not answer. Instead, he laughed and asked, "I'm a member of the Angel Clan, so of course I want to enter the Bloodwing Academy." Emo's eyes flickered with sharpness as he said in a deep voice. Chapter 3902. Bloodwing Academy. Nyetion looked at Emo and smiled faintly when he sensed the sharpness in the latter's eyes. He had already guessed that Emo would choose Bloodwing Academy. The baleful Ice Wings race had been expelled from the sacred world by the Angel race. This was a knot in Emo's heart. Even if the Angel race did not introduce him, he had to prove himself with his own strength. After a while, Emo calmed down and asked Nyetion, "What about you?" "I also want to enter Bloodwing Academy." Nyetion smiled faintly and nodded. "You also want to enter Bloodwing Academy?" Emo was stunned. He did not expect Nyetion to want to enter Bloodwing Academy. He could not help but ask why. Nyetion did not have any advantages in entering Bloodwing Academy as an outsider. Furthermore, Bloodwing Academy's cultivation was mostly targeted at the angel race. It was not suitable for Nietion. I came to the Southern Brilliance holy world for something. Nietion narrowed his eyes and said calmly, "Something?" Emo frowned, and his expression changed. "It can't be the angel's bloodwings, right?" He did not say the last half of the sentence. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Nietion. "Yes." Nietion nodded and did not say anything else. Emo's eyes trembled in shock. He stood rooted to the ground and could not speak for a long time. He never expected Nietion to come for the angel's bloodwings. After a while, Emo came to his senses and looked at Nietion with trembling eyes. "Nietion, do you know what the angel's bloodwings mean to the angel race?" Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Nietion. The latter smiled bitterly and replied, "I know what I am doing. I will tell you in detail later." Emo nodded, but his eyes were still filled with shock. No wonder Nietion came to the Southern Brilliance sacred world. He came for the angel's bloodwings. In fact, he was just making a random guess. He didn't expect to guess correctly. After gaining a rough understanding of the situation of the 5 great academies, Nietion had a rough idea of what was going on. This time, he did not think of anything else. He only wanted to enter the Bloodwing Academy. As for other matters, he would think about them after entering the academy. However, before he officially participated in the recruitment of the 5 academies, he had to do something else, and that was to find 6 young martial artists with enough talent. At the moment, he already had 3 candidates in mind: Jun Jinxing, Emo, and himself. He still needed to find 3 more warriors. With the 5 great academies recruiting together, basically all the genius cultivators of the sacred world had arrived. It was not difficult to find 3 cultivators with sufficient talent. But to find 3 martial artists who were willing to risk their lives to save people was more difficult. I wonder if Tang 13 and Tang Yu will come. Nietion frowned and thought to himself, if Tang 13 and Tang Yu came, then there would be 2 more people. Emo's gaze swept over Nietion. He could tell that the latter was worried about something, but he didn't ask too much. Next, they were not in a hurry. They waited outside the sacred city in the sky. 2 days later, more and more martial artists gathered outside the sacred city in the sky. Most of them were young martial artists. Only a small number of experts came to escort. Nietion took a look. At the moment, there were nearly 1 million martial artists gathered outside the sacred city in the sky. Moreover, most of these martial artists were very young, but their strength was very strong. At least half of them had reached the level of Saint Tianni. There were even a small number of heavenly tribulation saint experts. With Nietion's cultivation of the 9th tier of the heavenly mandate realm, he was not even at the average level. I didn't expect there to be so many geniuses in the sacred world. Jun Jinxing looked around and couldn't help but exclaim, "Yes." Emo nodded and said, "These martial artists are all martial arts geniuses. However, there won't be many who can stand out in this recruitment. Brother Emo, how many disciples will the 5 academies recruit this time?" Qi Chenfeng's eyes lit up. He stepped forward and asked, "Each academy will recruit different numbers, but the difference is not big. There should be around 1,000 or 2,000 people in each academy. In total, there will be around 8,000 people," Emo said with a faint smile. "Only 8,000? Qi Chenfeng was stunned and couldn't say a word. There were 1 million people here, but the 5 academies recruited less than 10,000 people. In other words, the elimination rate was above 99%. 8,000 is not a small number." Emo smiled faintly and said, "Moreover, the people you see are not all the people who are participating in the recruitment. When everyone is gathered, there should be 3 to 4 million people." 3 or 4 million. This. Qi Chenfeng frowned and was shocked. He couldn't say a word. 3 or 4 million people competing for a few thousand spots. What a fierce battle. Nietion couldn't help but sigh. The competition for the 5 academies was more intense than he had imagined. It is indeed a fierce battle. Emo nodded in agreement and said, "I wonder who will be qualified to enter the Hidden Sky ranking this time." The Hidden Sky ranking? Nyetian looked at Emo and was a little surprised. The Hidden Sky ranking is a ranking made by the 5 academies. It only includes warriors under the age of 1,000. Every time the ranking changes, it is during the recruitment of the 5 academies. Emo smiled and said, "Those who can shine during the recruitment of the 5 academies all have the chance to enter the Hidden Sky ranking. The Hidden Sky ranking only includes 100 people. As long as you can enter the Hidden Sky ranking, it means that you have the right to choose the 5 academies. The 5 academies won't choose you." "Sounds interesting," Nyetian said with a faint smile, the corner of his mouth curling up into a faint smile. Nyetian, this time, there are many participants who are already on the Hidden Sky ranking. If you meet someone like that, you have to be careful. Emo smiled and said to Nyetian. He knew that Nyetian's ambition was not as simple as the Hidden Sky ranking. However, it was always better to be careful. Yes, Nyetian nodded, but his face was very calm. This time, the 5 great academies were recruiting, and there were countless monstrous geniuses. He could seize this opportunity to truly test how strong his innate talent was. "You guys should be careful." Right then, a deep voice suddenly appeared. Then, a burning aura appeared and engulfed Nyetian's group. Nyetian frowned and suddenly turned around. He saw a familiar face. It was the blazing feather race martial artist they had met before, Chi-Chio. They took away Chi-Chio's blazing feather fire, causing Chi-Chio to come to the sacred city in the sky. At this time, Chi-Chio's face was gloomy and his eyes were full of anger. He stared at Nyetian's group like a fierce beast and said cold, "I finally found you guys. Chi-Chio, are they the people who hurt you?" At this time, a figure appeared behind Chi-Chio. He was dressed in white and had a dignified appearance. However, his eyes were extremely gloomy. "Oh, what I say really comes true." At this time, Emo looked at the cultivator in white and could not help but smile. Chapter 3903. Hidden Dragon Mark. When Emo saw the hidden dragon mark on the white-clothed martial artist's chest, his gaze involuntarily trembled slightly. What he revealed was not fear, but a peculiar excitement. Hidden Dragon Mark. This was a mark unique to martial artists on the Hidden Sky ranking. It was a symbol of identity and status. At this time, the others also noticed the hidden dragon mark on the white-clothed martial artist's chest and immediately flared up. This guy is actually a Hidden Sky ranking martial artist on the Hidden Sky ranking. Truly too terrifying. The legendary Hidden Sky ranking martial artist, I finally see him today. It's really a blessing of 3 lifetimes. This trip to Vast Cloud Sacred City was indeed not in vain. Those few pitiful, unlucky fellows seem to have provoked that Hidden Sky ranking martial artist. There's a good show to watch now. As everyone said, their gazes when looking at Nyetian and the others revealed rumination. Clearly, they were prepared to watch a good show. "Ninth brother, it's that guy," Chi-Chio said with a gloomy face, pointing at Emo. His eyes looked like he wanted to eat someone up. "He's the person with 3 pairs of angel wings that you said?" The white-clothed martial artist's face darkened slightly. The gaze he looked at Emo with changed slightly, like the excitement of a hungry wolf when it saw its prey. "That's him." Chi-Chio growled again and called out, "Ninth brother, kill him for me now." But the white-clothed martial artist's mouth pulled into a cold smile. He waved his hand, not in a hurry. He was called Chi-Chao-Chuan, a super genius of the Blazing Feather Race's younger generation. According to the Blazing Feather Race's ranking, he was Chi-Chio's 9th brother. Although Chi-Chao-Chuan was much younger than Chi-Chio, his strength was not weaker than Chi-Chio's. He was the same as Chi-Chio, 5th level Heavenly Righteousness Realm. However, his aura was far from what Chi-Chio could compare to. His combat power was even more not what Chi-Chio could compare to. He had just arrived at Vast Cloud's Sacred City and heard Chi-Chio mention the matter of being bullied, so he came to take revenge for the latter. At this moment, seeing the 3-winged angel that Chi-Chio mentioned, he could not help feeling excited. "If I'm not wrong, you remember the Baleful Frostwings race, right?" Chi-Chao-Chuan stared at Emo for a long time and finally opened his mouth, saying with a ruminating look. So what if I am? Emo responded with a faint smile. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. He was very calm. I never thought that the forbidden race that was chased out of the Saints' world would still have descendants alive. A sharp light flashed through Chi Chaochuan's eyes. He sneered and said, "You're quite brave to choose to appear during the recruitment period of the 5 academies. Aren't you afraid that the Angel clan won't accept you? You won't allow me?" Emo sneered. Could it be that the Angels want to kill the last orphan of the demonic Icewing race in front of everyone in the world? Back then, you couldn't tolerate the baleful Frostwings clan. Now, you can't even tolerate the last member of the baleful Frostwings clan? Chi Chaochuan's eyes darkened slightly before a sharp glint flashed through them. Kid, you're very courageous. How about this? This young master will give you a chance to live based on your courage. This young master will only use one palm. As long as you can block it, the matter of you humiliating Chi Chio will be written off. The Feather Clan will not make things difficult for you. How about it? Chi Chaochuan's eyes surged with a murderous and gloomy look. His superior attitude made him seem very arrogant. One palm. He was indeed very confident in himself. He even dared to promise EMO that he would only use one palm. It seemed that he was confident that he could kill EMO with one palm. So arrogant, Emo's eyes narrowed slightly, and he couldn't help but laugh. The others saw this scene, and their eyes trembled with excitement. They were obviously looking forward to it. A Hidden Sky warrior is indeed different when he speaks. He's confident and arrogant. This guy can be on the Hidden Sky ranking. His strength is unimaginable. That guy definitely has no chance to take a palm from a Hidden Sky warrior. That guy only has the cultivation of the 9th level of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Even the aura of a Hidden Sky warrior can directly suppress him, let alone a palm from a Hidden Sky warrior. Everyone discussed. They were obviously very confident in Chi Chaochuan. No one would believe that a divine sage of the Heavenly Mandate realm could take a blow from a warrior in the Hidden Sky realm. EMO, why don't you say something? Meanwhile, Chichio seemed to be unable to wait any longer, and he roared with arrogant laughter. If you don't dare to accept my challenge, then kneel obediently and kowtow to this young master to admit your mistakes. Perhaps this young master will be happy and spare your life. Emo's eyes darkened slightly. A cold light flashed by, making Chichio feel a great threat. Chichio was so scared that his face turned pale, and he didn't dare to say anything more. Okay, one palm it is. Then, Emo smiled faintly and said, I hope that you, a genius of the Blazing Feather Clan, can keep your promise. Of course. Chi Chaochuan's eyes darkened slightly, and the murderous intent in his eyes became even stronger. As a super genius of a younger generation of the Blazing Feather Clan, it was not a problem for him to represent the Blazing Feather Clan and let an insignificant person go. However, he had already made up his mind to kill. In his eyes, EMO was already a corpse. Nietian watched from his side. His eyes trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but feel a little worried. He was very confident in Emo's strength. But Chi Chaochuan was a Hidden Sky cultivator after all. The Hidden Sky ranking was a ranking for the entire All Heaven Saints world. In other words, Chi Chaochuan was someone who had stood out from the countless geniuses of the All Heaven Saints world. His strength was unimaginable. Moreover, Nietian had already sensed that Chi Chaochuan's presence was much more powerful than Chi Chio's, even though he was the same as Chi Chio. Without a doubt, Chi Chaochuan's bloodline was far more powerful than Chi Chio's. Sir Nietian, can Brother EMO do it? Chi Chenfeng was even more worried than Nietian, so he could not help but ask softly. I believe in him. Nietian's eyes darkened slightly, and he nodded. At that moment, he could only choose to believe in EMO come. At this moment, EMO took a step forward and roared like a wild beast. Immediately after, an extremely cold aura appeared around him, instantly condensing into an ice crystal barrier around him. All right, Chi Chaochuan laughed wildly and called out, the legendary taboo of angels, the last orphan of the baleful wings of frost. With your special identity, You do indeed have a right to die by my hands. Boom! With that, Chi Chaochuan's body shuddered and tremendous power of fire immediately surged out. It directly condensed into 3 pairs of fire wings around him. Angel wings! Chi Chenfeng's eyes could not help but shudder when he saw this. He could not help but cry out in shock. Nie Tian's face also darkened. He was quite shocked inside. This hidden sky cultivator called Chi Chaochuan was indeed impressive. He was able to condense 3 pairs of angel wings so easily. Previously, Emo only had 3 pairs of angel wings. However, Emo's cultivation was nowhere near Chi Chaochuan's. Chapter 39:04. Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he stared at Chi Chaochuan in the sky. The worry in his heart was written all over his face. Judging from Chi Chaochuan's calm demeanor, 3 pairs of wings shouldn't be his limit. As expected of a hidden sky cultivator, his strength was extraordinary. Boom! The moment the wings of flame appeared behind Chi Chaochuan, the surrounding space was enveloped by a scorching aura. It was as if the world had fallen into a furnace. Everyone's expression changed when they sensed the scorching aura. This guy is indeed a hidden sky cultivator. He's too strong. My God, how old is he to be able to unleash such a terrifying aura? Too terrifying. Is this the strength of a hidden sky cultivator? I'm afraid I can't even get within 10,000 meters of him. The crowd discussed among themselves as they looked at Chi Chaochuan with trembling eyes. They were filled with both admiration and fear. Chi Chaochuan listened to the discussions of the crowd and seemed to enjoy it very much. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips. In reality, he was only ranked 96th on the Hidden Sky ranking. He could be considered as someone who had barely squeezed into the Hidden Sky ranking. One could imagine just how terrifying those who were ranked at the top of the Hidden Sky ranking were. Kid, don't you also have 3 wings? Then let us see whether your 3 wings are stronger, or this young master's 3 wings are stronger. Chi Chaochuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he spoke in a cold tone. The aura of flames surrounding his body instantly exploded. Boom! The world rumbled as an endless amount of fiery energy danced in the air, turning into terrifying tongues of flame that seemed to want to devour and incinerate everything. Sure, Emo coldly stood in the air. His eyes were as deep as water, without the slightest ripple. However, the ice crystal barrier around his body was being strengthened bit by bit, and the fiendish cold aura around him was becoming even denser. You're courting death. Emo's calmness completely enraged Chi Chaochuan. He let out a roar, and his body shook. He growled, "Flame Dragon opens the way, burning the heavens." At the instant the roar rang out, the boundless flame energy in the air congregated together, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. A terrifying flame dragon appeared, pressing down on the void. Its flaming claws seemed to possess the power to shatter everything as it slashed downwards towards Qin Wentian. He grabbed at Emo. When Yetian sensed the terrifying aura of the flame dragon, his eyes trembled, and he couldn't help but cry out. It's over. Chi Chenfeng's eyes trembled with fear. His heart sank, and his face fell. He knew that Chi Chaochuan had left, but he hadn't expected him to be this terrifying. Even a peak great sage of Tianyi might not be able to withstand this attack of the burning sky. Ha ha ha, stinking brat, you're dead meat. At this moment, Chi Chio let out a hysterical laughter. He seemed to have already seen the scene of Emo being blasted to death. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. In the next instant, the fire dragon descended, causing the space around it to tremble. After that, boundless fire energy exploded, forming towering waves of fire in the air. They were like wild beasts that wanted to devour everything in their path. Emo's figure was instantly engulfed by the endless waves of fire. Nie Tian was taken aback by the scene in front of him. He sucked in a breath of cold air and was at a loss for words. Could it be that Emo was killed just like that? Based on his understanding of Emo, the latter shouldn't have died so easily. Boom, boom, boom. Chi, chi, chi. in the sky, the sounds of explosions were unceasing. The violent flame energy created waves of heat that didn't disappear for a long time. "He's dead." Everyone's eyes trembled, and their expressions froze in horror. The shock in their hearts could not be any greater. They had guessed that EMO would definitely die, but they didn't expect him to die so easily. He didn't even have a chance to fight back. Haha, what three-winged angel? What baleful wing clan? You're just trash. Then, mad laughter resounded in the sky. Chichio was extremely pleased with himself, and his face was slightly distorted. Right now, he was immersed in the joy of revenge. The last member of the baleful winged clan is just SOSO. Chi Chaochuan's reaction was very calm. He smiled faintly, but the smile on his face froze in the next instant. It was replaced with extreme shock as he exclaimed, "Wait!" Suddenly, Chi Chaochuan sensed a strange aura that caused his entire face to turn ugly. "Genius of the blazing wing clan, is that all you've got?" Just at this moment, a low and provocative voice rang out from within the burning waves of flames. It was like a clap of thunder, resounding in everyone's ears. Everyone's eardrums shook and their expressions changed. They were speechless. This voice clearly belonged to EMO. "This is impossible." Chichio's distorted face froze for a moment before he roared like a wild beast. How could this be? Chi Chaochuan couldn't help but cry out in shock. He had never imagined that EMO would still be alive after taking his attack. "Are you surprised?" Emo's voice resounded once more, and then the sky rumbled. An extremely cold aura suffused the surroundings and forcefully annihilated the flames. In the next moment, a figure appeared in everyone's field of vision. It was EMO. "EMO, you're really still alive." Nietion's eyes trembled when he saw EMO again, and he cried out in pleasant surprise. "This?" Beside him, Chunfeng's eyes widened when he saw EMO. Then, he became completely dumbfounded. He was completely speechless. He didn't dare to believe his eyes. What exactly was he seeing? EMO stood coldly in the sky while the baleful frost wings on his back fluttered. There weren't 3 pairs, but 4. That's right. At this moment, EMO actually had 4 pairs of baleful frost wings on his back. How could Chi Chunfeng have imagined that EMO was actually a 4-winged angel? A 4-winged angel. It's actually a 4-winged angel. But how is this possible? How old was EMO? His bloodline power was so terrifying that it was enough for him to condense a 4th pair of angel wings. Chichio stared at the baleful frost wings on Emo's back. His eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost, and his entire body was drenched in cold sweat. He finally understood why EMO, who was only at the 9th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm, could easily crush him. It was because EMO was a 4-winged angel. As a member of the Angel Clan, he naturally knew what a 4-winged angel meant. With Emo's talent, he could definitely be ranked in the top 5 among all the geniuses of the Angel Clan. Chapter 3905. Boom! Chi Chaochuan stood coldly in the sky, his flame wings flapping. Waves of firepower were like violent beasts of fire that wanted to devour the world. His eyes were silent and murderous as he stared fixedly at EMO. They exuded an extremely chilling aura and murderous intent. He didn't think that EMO would be able to block his attack. He also didn't think that EMO was a 4-winged angel. EMO was only at the 9th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm, but he was able to condense 4 pairs of angel wings with his bloodline power. His bloodline talent was terrifying. Chi Chaochuan had promised before that as long as EMO was able to block one of his attacks, the previous matter would be written off, and the blazing wing race wouldn't make things difficult for EMO. But now, the murderous intent in Chi Chaochuan's eyes didn't decrease. His murderous red eyes clearly looked like he wanted to devour someone. This guy, is he still not going to let brother EMO go? Chi Chunfeng exclaimed in shock when he felt Chi Chaochuan's murderous intent. Nietion's expression was dark, and he didn't say anything. How could he not see that Chi Chaochuan's murderous intent towards EMO was even heavier? Does the hidden heaven cultivator still want to fight? The crowd reacted, and many people exclaimed in shock as they looked at Chi Chaochuan. Chi Chaochuan's murderous intent was too heavy. Everyone present could feel a chill. It seems that you still want to kill me. However, Emo's expression was indifferent at this time. He laughed and said, "So the promises made by the blazing wing race are as fragile as a fart. Kid, I just said that if you can block one attack, the grudge between you and Chi Chio will be written off." Chi Chaochuan smiled coldly and said, "But what we need to do next is settle the grudge between us." Us? Emo frowned, and his lips curled into a playful smile. "Is there a grudge between us?" "Of course." Chi Chaochuan's eyes instantly turned cold. "You blocked my attack and made me lose face in front of everyone. That alone is enough for me to kill you 10 times over." Emo's eyes darkened again. His face was filled with an extremely cold, killing intent. He then laughed and said, "It turns out that a warrior on the Hidden Sky list can also be so shameless. Today is really an eye-opener." Nie Tian frowned when he heard Chi Chaochuan's words. The corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. This Chi Chaochuan had the title of a genius, but he did not have the bearing of a cultivator at all. There was really no one like him who would go back on his word to such an extent. Many of the spectators sneered inwardly when they saw this. Clearly, they disdained Chi Chaochuan's actions. However, no one revealed too much of it. After all, Chi Chaochuan's status was different. It was not easy to offend him. "Come on." At this time, Emo laughed wildly and said, "Let me see how strong a four-winged angel like you really is." Four-winged angel. As soon as he finished speaking, Chi Chio was stunned, and then he recovered from his shock and said with astonishment, "Could it be that ninth brother is a four-winged angel as well?" "All right." Right at this moment, Chi Chaochuan roared, and then his aura shook. An extraordinary aura of fire was released from his body, and then a fourth pair of angel wings appeared on his back. That's right. Chi Chaochuan was a four-winged angel as well. Chi Chio couldn't help but tremble when he saw this, and he was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He didn't know that Chi Chaochuan had actually grown into a four-winged angel. This fellow is a four-winged angel as well. Chi Chunfeng exclaimed, and even his voice had turned shrill. It was obvious how shocked he was. No wonder Chi Chaochuan was able to condense 3 pairs of angel wings so easily. So his true strength had already reached the level of 4 wings. Kid from the demonic ice winged race, you should be content to die to this young master's 4 wings. Chi Chaochuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke coldly. The aura of fire around him instantly swept out like raging waves, and the entire world actually started to burn. He had to admit that he'd underestimated EMO and hadn't brought out his true strength. Only now did he truly consider EMO as an opponent. 4 pairs of angel wings was his limit, so he wouldn't be able to maintain it for too long in his current state. However, EMO, with his 9th level heavenly mandate realm strength, was actually able to support 4 pairs of angel wings. Chi Chaochuan couldn't compare to such a powerful bloodline talent. It was because of this that Chi Chaochuan was determined to kill EMO. The real battle hasn't started yet. Are you sure you can defeat me? EMO smiled coldly. Then, the demonic ice wings on his back vibrated, and waves of demonic ice chi surged out, forcefully blocking the impact of the flames. Boom, boom, boom. The void rumbled endlessly. The two hadn't even started fighting yet, but their bloodline power had already clashed against each other. You're very arrogant. You've aroused my battle intent. Chi Chaochuan's eyes darkened as he growled. Then, the flames around his body crazily surged, and waves of demonic ice chi rushed towards EMO like giant snakes. Then come at me, EMO growled. Then, he soared into the sky. His battle intent soared, and a monstrous aura was released. Suddenly, the demonic ice chi in the void intensified, forcefully suppressing the flames. Chi Chaochuan's expression changed. Then he slapped out with his palm, and several firestorms appeared. The firestorms rumbled endlessly as they swept towards Emo. Emo's eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a cold smile. Then, several giant icicles appeared in the void, whistling out like raging dragons. Boom, boom, boom. In the next instant, the firestorms and the giant icicles collided. The extreme collision of ice and fire caused chaos in the heavens and earth. The power of ice and fire swept out in all directions, as if they wanted to drown and destroy everything. Then, Chi Chaochuan and Emo both retreated a few hundred meters before stabilizing themselves. Very good. You're worthy of my full strength. Chi Chaochuan stabilized himself. His eyes were filled with malice as he growled. Then, he slapped out with his palm again, and a dragon-shaped flame appeared in the sky. Like an arrow, it whistled towards Emo. Emo's expression darkened, but he was not afraid at all. He stomped on the ground and dashed forward. Rumble! In the next instant, countless icicles condensed around his body. Like a violent storm, they directly collided with the dragon-shaped flame. In an instant, flames soared to the sky, and icicles shot out in all directions. The heavens and earth shook violently, as if they couldn't withstand such power and were about to collapse in the next moment. These two fellows are too terrifying. Everyone was stunned by the scene in the sky. Their eyes trembled uncontrollably, and their hearts were filled with shock. It was hard to imagine that this was a battle between two young cultivators. It was too terrifying. Tian stared at the sky, not daring to look away. Chapter 3906. Emo's bloodline talent was indeed above Chi Chaochuan's, but he was only at the 9th level of the Heavenly Mandate realm. It was difficult for him to face a 5th-level Heavenly Mandate Saint. One had to know that a 5th-level Heavenly Mandate Saint Master could instantly kill a 9th-level Heavenly Mandate Saint Master if their talents were similar. It was already very terrifying that Emo could fight against Chi Chaochuan for so long without losing. Tian's eyes trembled slightly. Sword intent surged in his body. He was ready to act. Brat, how much longer can you last? Up in the sky, Chi Chaochuan sneered. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. The flames on his body surged wildly, dyeing the world red. Umph. Emo smiled coldly. The one who laughs last is the true winner. Is that so? Chi Chaochuan smiled evilly. The power of fire in his body burst forth again. Waves of flames surged violently. It was obvious that he could tell that Emo was tired and wanted to kill him in one move. Die. In the next moment, Chi Chaochuan laughed madly. The power of fire condensed around his body. An enormous flaming dragon appeared in the void. It surged forward and made the world seem small. The aura on the flaming dragon was extremely violent. There was also a type of rune power circulating around its body. It was extremely terrifying. Oh no! Seeing this, Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble, and he cried out in his heart. He could feel that the flaming dragon formed by Chi Chaochuan was much more powerful than before. If Emo did not have a powerful trump card, he would not be able to withstand the dragon's attack. Roar! At this moment, the flaming dragon rolled out with a deafening roar. Its enormous body was like a sea of fire that pressed towards Emo everywhere the dragon passed. The world was set ablaze. I didn't expect Ninth Brother to be so terrifying. Chi Chio's eyes trembled. His eyes were twisted with excitement. Chi Chaochuan's strength shocked him, but he was more excited at the prospect of getting revenge. He did not believe that Emo had the strength to block the dragon's attack. All right, I'll bet with you once. Victory or defeat in one move. At this moment, Emo coldly stood in the air, his eyes filled with killing intent. After that, he didn't dodge or retreat. Instead, he directly rushed forward. Is he out of his mind? Jun Jianxing could not help but exclaim after seeing this. Tian was also stunned, and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. No one had expected Emo to advance, instead of retreating in the face of Chi Chaochuan's killing blow. Profound Ice Dragon Lock. In the next instant, Emo growled, and the cold chi in his body exploded. Like a tsunami, it emitted an unparalleled amount of energy. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Then, an endless amount of baleful cold energy condensed into countless ice chains in the air. Like long snakes, they whizzed out and enveloped the flaming dragon. You want to lock this young master's flame dragon with this mysterious ice lock? What a joke. Chi Chaochuan crazily laughed at this scene. He did not think that a few thousand mysterious ice chains could trap his flame dragon. In the next second, thousands of mysterious ice chains descended at the same time. Like maggots on a corpse, they wrapped around the flame dragon's body. Roar! The flame dragon growled and unleashed its violent energy. However, the power of the flames could not break through the mysterious ice chains. How is this possible? This shocking scene made Chi Chaochuan's eyes shake, and he couldn't help but exclaim. But then, something even more terrifying happened. Restrain. The corner of Emo's lips twitched as he uttered out a single word. Then, the mysterious ice chains began to tighten and instantly locked the flame dragon in place. Moreover, after the profound ice chains connected, they actually fused together and condensed into an even larger profound ice chain. This shocking scene made Chi Chaochuan's eyes tremble. He was unable to accept this and was speechless. He could not understand how Emo's mysterious ice chains were able to restrain his flame dragon. The surrounding crowd was also stunned by this scene. Every single one of them was stunned, and the shock in their hearts was indescribable. Shatter! Just at this moment, Emo spoke in a low voice. Immediately, the ice chains tightened, and the fire dragon was unable to bear the weight and directly collapsed. It turned into endless waves of fire that spread wildly in all directions. Ugh! At the same time, Chi Chaochuan's body shook, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he was sent flying and left a bloody trail in the sky. The violent waves of fire in the sky took a long time to dissipate. Emo stood coldly in the sky with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Using the mysterious ice chains of the Nine Hell just now had taken quite a toll on him and caused him some injuries. But compared to him, Chi Chaochuan's situation could only be described as tragic. At this moment, Chi Chaochuan stood in the sky with blood all over his body. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and even his body was trembling as if he could fall at any moment. He raised his head to look at Emo with shock and fear. Even now, he still didn't know why he lost Emo. You really want to know how you lost, right? Emo smiled coldly as murderous intent filled his eyes. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. He took a step forward and flew towards Chi Chaochuan. What do you want? Chi Chaochuan's eyes trembled when he felt Emo's murderous intent. Even his voice became shrill. You can kill me, but I can't kill you. Emo sneered. Don't you look down on the demonic glacial winged race? Then I'll kill you, a genius of the blazing winged race. Let's see what you high and mighty people can do then. You want to kill me? Chi Chaochuan's pupils constricted as he felt death approaching. Die. Emo sneered in response. Then his figure instantly moved. He slapped down with his palm, and a blade of ice howled out towards Chi Chaochuan. If this blade of ice were to land, Chi Chaochuan's fate would be certain to be death. Boom! However, at this time, a loud explosion suddenly resounded in the sky. Then, a powerful force descended and pressed down on Emo. Emo instantly felt a suffocating aura. His expression changed, and the 4 pairs of angel wings on his back moved at the same time to resist the pressure in the sky. However, the pressure was like an ocean that was completely unstoppable. Chapter 39:07. What a powerful sword formation. Emo suddenly felt the pressure around him disappear. He could not help but be stunned for a moment. Then he exclaimed in surprise and joy. Fortunately, the sword formation fell and protected him in time. Otherwise, he would not have been able to resist the tremendous pressure in the void. Boom! At that moment, a huge pressure suddenly descended from the sky. It was like a mountain landing on the sword formation. Immediately, the world shook. The huge energy waves condensed into a visible ripple in the air. It was extremely terrifying. The tremendous pressure was like a galaxy falling from the nine heavens, but the sword formation was like a primordial beast forcibly blocking the pressure. The collision this time seemed to shake the world. Terrifying waves surged in the sky and did not dissipate for a long time. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. It took a long time for them to react. What is that? The crowd suddenly looked up and saw a ball of holy light floating in the sky. It was dazzling and glorious, as if a god had descended. The ball of light was so dazzling that no one dared to look at it directly. It seemed to represent all the beauty and light in the world, making people feel ashamed of their own inferiority. This is... Qi Chunfeng stared at the ball of light. His eyes trembled and his lips twitched. He was completely speechless. Angel of light. Emo looked up at the ball of light. His eyes trembled slightly, and his face was extremely gloomy. He uttered these three words coldly, one word at a time. Yes, yes, yes. Qi Chunfeng heard Emo's words. It was like thunder in his ears. He nodded dumbly. He never thought that he would see the legendary Angel of Light. The Angel of Light was the strongest branch of the Angel clan. They were also known as the Supreme Angels. 70 to 80% of the top experts of the Angel clan belonged to the Angel of Light. Moreover, the Angel of Light relied on its own advantages. Almost all of its main branches lived in high-rank and top-rank sacred worlds. It was no exaggeration to say that the Angel of Light was the most supreme branch of the Angel clan. That was why Qi Chunfeng was so shocked when he confirmed that the ball of light was an Angel of Light. Is the Angel of Light very strong? Nie Tian's eyes darkened slightly. He looked at the ball of light in the sky and could not help but twitch the corners of his mouth as he muttered. At that moment, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the ball of light gradually became clear and a white-robed figure appeared in front of everyone. His face was elegant and handsome, as if it had been carved by a knife. It was incomparably exquisite, like the work of nature. He was tall and had an imposing appearance, as if all the good things in the world were concentrated on him. Could you be? At this time, Qi Chaochuan, who had been stunned for a long time, finally reacted. He looked toward the person high up in the sky and gasped, "Holy Light Martial Intent! Holy Light Martial Intent!" When the crowd heard this name, their eyes trembled. Everyone looked excited, as if their blood was boiling. When Ye Tian saw this, his eyes narrowed and his expression turned strange. From the looks of it, this person in white was a very famous person. Everyone looked at the white-clothed man with burning expressions and couldn't help but discuss loudly. Holy Light Martial Intent. It's actually the Holy Light Martial Intent. He actually came to participate in the enrollment of the 5 academies. The number one genius of the angel race for the last several million years, the Holy Light Martial Intent. I never thought that such a character would actually come to the 5 academies to enroll. The youngest person in the top 10 of the Hidden Heaven Decree. In the history of all saints, he is one of the few super geniuses that managed to enter the realm of Saint Monarch before the age of 100. His Holy Light Martial Intent has actually come. To be able to see such a character on this trip to Vast Cloud Sacred City, even if I can't enter the 5 academies, I will still be able to see him. I think it was worth it. As the crowd discussed, their eyes filled with excitement focused on the Holy Light Martial Intent. This sort of worship, this sort of awe, simply seeped into their souls. So this person is actually this terrifying. Nie Tian's eyes darkened when he heard the crowd's words. He was shocked. He knew that the Holy Light Martial Intent was a genius, but he didn't think that the latter would be a genius to such a degree. It was really terrifying to step into the realm of Saint Monarch before the age of 100. In fact, Nie Tian was not very old. If he only counted the age of this life, he was even less than 100 years old. But if he counted his previous life, he was already 200 or 300 years old. In this life, the reason why he could cultivate so fast was because of the cultivation experience of his previous life. If he didn't have the experience of his previous life, he would never have reached his current realm. But at this time, he was only at the 9th level of the heavenly mandate realm, and he had just reached it not long ago. He had not even touched the door of the realm of Saint Monarch. However, the holy light martial intent had stepped into the realm of Saint Monarch with absolute talent and strength. It was really terrifying. From his point of view, Tian's martial arts talent seemed to be inferior to the holy light martial intent. However, the holy light martial intent had its own unique advantage, which was that it was born in a top sacred world. Just this point alone was a height that the warriors in the lower realms could never reach in their lifetime. Thinking of this, Tian felt a little more balanced in his heart. Although he had experienced countless life and death situations and was no longer a competitive person, he still had the pride of a warrior. What shocked Tian even more was that the holy light martial intent in front of him was actually a warrior ranked in the top 10 of the Hidden Sky list. According to his estimation, the age of the holy light martial intent should be just over 100 years old, and the Hidden Sky list was for young warriors under 1,000 years old. The holy light martial intent was able to squeeze into the top 10 of the Hidden Sky list at 100 years old. It was really strong. Moreover, the cultivation of the holy light martial intent was not too high. It was the same as Qi Chaochuan, the 5th level of heavenly mandate. But Qi Chaochuan was at the bottom of the Hidden Sky list, and the holy light martial intent was in the top 10 of the Hidden Sky list. The two were simply not on the same level. The holy light martial intent was ranked in the top 10 of the Hidden Sky list with such a cultivation. It was even more obvious how terrifying his martial arts talent was. Cold Demon Wing's clan member, he has already been defeated. Why do you have to kill him? At this time, the holy light martial intent spoke. Its eyes were cold and arrogant, as if it was emotionless. It stared at Emo coldly. What about you? Why do you have to kill him? Emo's eyes darkened, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he asked Cold. That's right. The palm of the holy light martial intent was not to stop him from killing, but to kill him directly. Chapter 3908. Emo's eyes darkened. He loudly said, just because I'm a member of the Cold Demon Wing clan, you can only kill me, but I can't kill you, right? The Cold Demon Wing clan is a fallen angel. They have already been expelled from the holy world by the angel race. You shouldn't have appeared here. The holy light martial intent said Cold. You coming here is a mistake. You are doomed to die. Whether or not I should die is my own business. It is not up to you to decide. Emo proudly said Cold. Is that so? The holy light martial intent sneered, standing in front of me. You are nothing more than an ant. I can kill you at any time. Do you think you have the chance to resist? His voice was pleasant to the ears, but was also icy cold, making one's heart race. The Cold Demon Wing clan was a taboo of the angel race. Emo's appearance here was a mistake. You could try. Emo's eyes trembled. He took a step forwards, but at this moment his body shook and blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth. Just now, he had condensed 4 pairs of angel wings. In addition to using the profound ice of the netherworld, this had placed a tremendous burden on his martial body. He was already unable to withstand it. In addition, the oppressive aura of the holy light martial intent was extremely strong. It was already not easy for him to stand still at this time. Emo, are you all right? At this time, a light voice sounded out. A figure appeared behind Emo, and a powerful strength gushed out, causing Emo's complexion to improve. Niet Tian. Emo turned to look at Niet Tian and reluctantly nodded, indicating that he was fine. His life wasn't in danger, but he no longer had the strength to fight. It was you just now. The appearance of Niet Tian caused the holy light martial intent's eyes to darken. It coldly locked onto Niet Tian's body as it asked. When its palm fell a moment ago, it hadn't been able to kill Emo. Instead, it had been blocked by a sword array. This had left it shocked, but it hadn't been able to find out who had attacked. When it attacked, it had already determined that Emo would die. It didn't think that an accident would occur. At this moment, as Niet Tian appeared, the aura of his sword intent seemed to match the aura of the sword array. This caused the holy light martial intent to be stunned. He had never thought that the person who appeared in front of him right now was actually a Saint Master Warrior who was only in the 9th Heavenly Mandate realm. From his point of view, this was simply impossible. Ever since he had stepped into the sage Monarch Tiany's Extreme Sutra, there were very few sage Monarch Tiany martial artists who could withstand his palm strike. But right now, a divine master of the Heavenly Mandate realm was able to take a blow from him. He could not believe it all. That's me. Tian looked at the holy light martial intent high in the sky and faintly smiled. He said, "Are you surprised? I didn't expect that the person who took my palm strike would be a divine master of Heavenly Mandate." The holy light martial intent's complexion was a bit strange, but didn't hide anything. It directly asked, "What is your name?" "My name isn't worth mentioning. But for a great genius like you to sneak attack in front of so many people, don't you feel ashamed?" Tian faintly smiled and asked, "Sneak attack?" The holy light martial intent sneered and said, "Do I need to sneak attack him to kill him?" The battle between Emo and Chi Chaochuan was a fair battle. You directly interfered and attacked him from behind. If this isn't a sneak attack, then what is? Tian still had a faint smile on his face as he spoke in an extremely provocative manner. Everyone looked at Tian with stunned expressions. They had no idea where Tian had come from. Moreover, Tian's current attitude made everyone feel very uncomfortable. In their eyes, Tian and the holy light martial intent were not people of the same status. But when Tian spoke to the holy light martial intent, his attitude was completely equal. There was even a bit of provocation and even contempt. This was unbearable for them. These people were used to kneeling in front of powerhouses. When they saw someone standing, they naturally felt uncomfortable in their hearts. "Boy, you want to protect this Ice Demon Wing Clan person." Facing Tian's provocation, the holy light martial intent didn't care at all. It said, "If you want to protect someone, then you must have the strength to do so." How could not hear that Tian was deliberately provoking it? But how could the holy light martial intent be so easily fooled? "Emo is my friend. If you want to kill him, you'll have to pass through me first." Tian faintly smiled, not afraid in the slightest. He knew that he wasn't a match for the holy light martial intent. But now that things had developed to this step, he could only brace himself. A moment ago, he had used the Sky Sword Array in order to barely block the holy light martial intent's palm strike. If the holy light martial intent truly attacked with its full strength, he simply wouldn't be able to block it. At this moment, he had already prepared for the worst. At worst, he would take out the angel token. Even if the holy light martial intent was an angel of light and was a super genius of the angel race, in front of the angel token, it absolutely wouldn't dare to act rashly. "I am a Hidden Sky martial artist ranked in the top 10 of the Hidden Sky Decree. As for you, you are just a nobody." The holy light martial intent's eyes turned. It looked at Tian and said, "With my status, if I were to attack you, it would be a bit of a bully. How about this? I think your sword intent is quite good. I'll give you one chance. If you have the chance, let's exchange a sword strike. After this sword strike, if you are still alive, then I won't kill your friend. How about it?" As it finished speaking, its eyes surged with a cold and gloomy aura. As it looked at Tian, it was as if it were looking at a dead man. A sword strike. Tian's eyes darkened. He couldn't help but be excited. He didn't think that the holy light martial intent would be so arrogant as to allow him to exchange a single sword strike. If this was a frontal battle, then the current Tian simply wouldn't be a match for the holy light martial intent. But in this exchange of swords, Tian saw a glimmer of hope. He didn't feel any sword intent fluctuations from the holy light martial intent. He didn't think that the latter was also a swordsman. The holy light martial intent looked at Tian. It wasn't in a hurry and waited for the latter's reply. "Okay." After a moment, Tian's lips twitched as he agreed. Tian. Emo's eyes trembled. He was obviously very worried. Although the holy light martial intent only had the cultivation of a 5th-level heavenly justice saint, it was still a powerhouse ranked in the top 10 of the Hidden Sky Decree. If Nyetian wanted to bet a single sword strike with it, wasn't that just courting death? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Nyetian turned around and looked at Emo. He faintly smiled, full of confidence. Chapter 3909. Hua. High in the sky, the holy light martial intent was like a giant sword that was tens of thousands of feet long. Around its body, a boundless sword intent surged out, spreading out in all directions like a vast sea. That terrifying sword intent instantly filled up the space of hundreds of thousands of meters. The aura of the sword intent fluctuations made people tremble with fear. The holy light martial intent stood there like an absolute master. It seemed that it could control everything in this world. What a terrifying sword intent. Everyone could feel the sword intent in the void. They couldn't help but tremble, and the shock in their hearts couldn't be any greater. No one had thought that the holy light martial intent could release such a terrifying sword intent. The holy light martial intent was a super genius that everyone in the holy world knew. It had always been in the top 10 of the hidden sky list. No one had thought that it was also an extremely terrifying swordsman. Fifth layer of holy doctrine. Nyetian looked at the holy light martial intent in the sky and couldn't help but frown. The shock in his heart made his expression change. In an instant, he perceived that the holy light martial intent sword realm was the fifth layer of holy doctrine. The top 3 swordsmanship in the holy realm were sword rhythm, oracle, and holy doctrine. At this time, Nyetian was in the first layer of oracle sword realm. Compared to his martial arts realm, his sword realm was a bit worse. However, his sword intent was not any weaker than a high-level oracle swordsman. It could even suppress some holy doctrine swordsmen. When the holy light martial intent showed an extremely strong sword intent, Nyetian couldn't help but be a little nervous. He felt a trace of threat from the former's sword intent. The holy light martial intent's martial arts talent was so high. It was absolutely a top genius in the holy world. Even if its sword talent wasn't as good as its martial arts talent, it definitely wouldn't be weak. The most terrible thing was that the holy light martial intent sword realm was much higher than Nyetian's. It was impossible for the holy light martial intent to make up for such a big gap. Boy, my realm is much higher than yours. I don't want to take advantage of you too much. You and I will only compete with sword intent and sword moves. Moreover, I will suppress my sword intent to the 9th layer of oracle. At this time, the holy light martial intent proudly said in a loud voice, "Our sword battle is not about who wins or loses, but about your life or death. My life and death. If you're still alive after this strike, it'll be your win. If you're dead, it'll be my win. What do you think?" His voice resounded through the void, resounding in everyone's ears, revealing the infinite arrogance of the holy light martial intent. He directly made so many concessions, not only because he despised Nyetian, but also because he had absolute confidence in his own strength. Sir Holy Light Martial Will is truly worthy of being a peerless talent on the Hidden Heaven Decree. He is truly magnanimous and righteous. That fellow is only a heavenly mandate Saint Master. He is simply a waste. Even if Lord Holy Light Martial Will didn't take out his sword, he still wouldn't be able to stand. That boy dares to take on Lord Sacred Light Martial Intent's sword. He is simply seeking death. Everyone discussed with a playful smile on their faces. Obviously, they were certain that Nyetian would die. Come, draw your sword. But Nyetian wasn't affected by the outside world at all. He only looked up at the holy light martial intent. Very good. In this situation, you can still maintain your composure. You have the qualifications to die by my hands. The holy light martial intent said once more. It was still incomparably arrogant, not putting Nyetian in its eyes at all. Bang! Immediately, its body shook and a terrifying sword intent crazily surged out, howling like a raging storm. Suddenly, the heavens and earth began to tremble. His sword intent is fierce and fierce, and it is also incomparably sharp. It is truly terrifying. As Nyetian felt the sword intent fluctuations in the air, he was even more shocked. He had never seen such a ferocious sword intent before. It was as vast as the mountains and seas, and at the same time, it also carried with it a swift and fierce edge. The holy light martial intent's sword intent was far more terrifying than Tian had imagined. The sword in my hand is called the righteous law of heaven and earth. At this time, the holy light martial intent raised the profound black heavy sword in its hands and proudly said, "Today, with the righteous law of heaven and earth, I will send you on your final journey." Tian's expression was tranquil. His eyes were as deep as water, without the slightest ripple. But in the next moment, he actually closed his eyes as if he had entered into some sort of mysterious state. As the holy light martial intent saw this, its eyes narrowed. It sneered and said, "At this time, you still want to comprehend? Don't you think it's a bit too late? Let's end this." In the next moment, without any hesitation, the righteous law of heaven and earth cut through the void like a black light. Suddenly, the world seemed to sink, as if it were being suppressed by a tremendous strength. Hua! Immediately, an endless sword intent of light crazily surged out, like a brilliant rainbow that flowed through the horizon. The power of the sword intent was released, and in the void, a giant sword of light appeared. It was like a storm condensed from the sun's rays, howling and roiling as it rushed towards Tian. Tian stood in the air. Under the 9 swords, he was like a leaf in a storm, about to be annihilated in the blink of an eye. But his expression was incomparably calm, completely unaffected by the outside world. "You still haven't made your move? Have you given up on resisting?" The holy light martial intent looked at Tian and said in a cold voice. Just as the holy light martial intent's voice fell, Tian suddenly opened his eyes. Suddenly, a sharp and fierce aura was released. Sacred heaven defying sword. 3 powers returned to 1. In the next moment, Tian lightly said. A sword intent was released from his body, and the sword in the sky suddenly rose up and stabbed out. This sword didn't seem to have any momentum at all, but it was swift and fierce to the extreme. Like a rainbow, it directly attacked. This sword was the simplest form of the great Tao, but it displayed the power of the sword intent to the extreme. Puff! Then there was a piercing sound in the void. The giant sword's shadow trembled in the void, and then directly collapsed, turning into endless waves of sword intent that crazily rushed out in all directions. Tian's figure was instantly submerged in the waves of sword intent. There was no trace of him, and not even the slightest aura could be felt. Is he dead? Everyone trembled as they looked at the waves of sword intent in the sky. There was shock and doubt in their eyes. They could vaguely sense that something was amiss. But most people thought that Tian had been submerged in the waves of sword intent and had died. Is it over? The holy light martial intent stood high in the sky. There was a strange light in his eyes, as if he was talking to himself. What do you think? Almost at the same time as he spoke, a low voice sounded out. Then, in the endless waves of sword intent, a sword power shot up into the sky, and a silver-haired figure appeared. It was Tian. Chapter 39:10. The holy light martial intent's pupils shrank as it looked at Tian in disbelief. Obviously, it couldn't accept what had just happened. He couldn't believe that Tian had blocked his sword strike. Great genius, did I disappoint you? Tian faintly smiled, the corners of his mouth twitching. The meaning of provocation and sarcasm was very strong. At this time, not only was he not dead, he wasn't even injured. The sword of the holy light martial intent was indeed extraordinary. It wasn't easy for Tian to block this sword. He used the sword intent of the holy light martial intent as a guide to comprehend the tripartite sacred array. Finally, at the last moment, he used the sacred heaven defying sword's tripartite unification, universe firming. At this point, he comprehended another powerful sword move of the sacred heaven defying sword. Tripartite sacred heaven, human sword cutting stars, earth sword swallowing moon, heavenly sword reversing sun, earth and human unite, stars and moon sync, heaven and human unite, yang sacrifice, heaven and earth firming. The tripartite unification, heaven, earth, and human. Understanding the way of heaven, feeling the rhythm of the earth, and establishing the heart of man. The rhythm of heaven, earth, and human were the foundation of the tripartite unification. However, Nietian's sacred heaven-defying sword was different from the tripartite unification. It was the tripartite unification against man, against earth, and against heaven. Luckily, Nietian comprehended the tripartite unification at the last moment. Otherwise, even if he could block the holy light martial intent, he would have been severely wounded. However, it had to be mentioned that even though the holy light martial intent only used the sword intent, it still suppressed the sword realm to the oracle ninth heavens. If it wasn't like this, with his sword cultivation, he would have the strength to kill Nietian in a second. Their martial arts and swordsmanship talents were almost the same, but their realms were thousands of points apart. If it was an ordinary swordsman at the holy light fifth heavens, Nietian could definitely contend with him. However, the holy light martial intent had a similar talent in swordsmanship as him. However, if they were in the same realm, Nietian had absolute confidence that he could defeat the holy light martial intent. He didn't die. At that moment, everyone finally came to their senses. Their eyes trembled as they looked at Nietian and exclaimed in shock, "He's not dead? How is that possible?" Everyone seemed to be unable to accept the fact that Nietian was not dead, and many of them actually began to scream hoarsely. Nietian's expression was indifferent. He completely ignored everyone else, his eyes locked onto the holy light martial intent. At this time, he was very worried that the holy light martial intent would renege on his words like Chi Chao Chuan. If that really happened, then he could only take out the angelic saint token. The angelic holy order was no small matter. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Nietian would not easily take it out. What was that sword move you used just now? At this time, the holy light martial intent that had been shocked for a long time finally opened its mouth. Its eyes trembled as it looked at Nietian from afar. The three powers returned to one. The universe is stable. Nietian's lips twitched as he spoke. What a great three talents returning to one. The holy light martial intent's eyes trembled. Then, as if it had gone mad, it laughed and said, "In this exchange of swords, I have lost." Nietian's eyes narrowed slightly, and his heart relaxed a lot. Since the holy light martial intent had admitted defeat, there was no need for him to take out the angelic saint token. With the status of the holy light martial intent, since it had admitted defeat in front of everyone, it shouldn't go back on its words. "I admit it." Nietian calmly smiled, his expression indifferent. The reason he was able to win in this exchange of swords was not because the holy light martial intent was weak, but because it was simply too arrogant. If the holy light martial intent wasn't too confident in itself, then Nietian simply wouldn't have been able to block its sword. Even if Nietian had a proud and arrogant air in his heart, he couldn't help but admit that the current him was not a match for the holy light martial intent. "Now, can you tell me your name?" At this time, the holy light martial intent looked at Nietian and asked. "Nietian." Nietian faintly smiled in response. "Very good." The holy light martial intent nodded and said, "Nietian, I hope that you can join the 5 academies. I look forward to your growth. One day, when your realm is almost the same as mine, I want to have a good fight with you." "Anytime." Nietian faintly smiled, not afraid in the slightest. The holy light martial intent was a super genius. The pride and arrogance in its heart was even stronger than that of an ordinary martial artist. For it to say such words to Nietian, it meant that it had begun to take Nietian seriously, and now regarded Nietian as a true opponent. "I look forward to your performance during the recruitment." The holy light martial intent's lips twitched, and then it didn't say anything else. Nietian nodded, not saying anything else. Like this, the storm had ended. However, Nietian's performance had left a deep imprint in the hearts of everyone present. In particular, some of the other geniuses had already begun to secretly pay attention to Nietian. Nietion, this time it's all thanks to you. At this time, Emo walked forwards, a bitter smile on his face as he looked at Nietion. If it wasn't for Nietion, he probably wouldn't have been able to stand until now. Are your injuries okay? Nietion smiled and then asked with concern. Just a small injury. It will heal soon. Emo faintly smiled and said, the recruitment of the 5 academies this time has alarmed many geniuses. It is too difficult for people like you and me to stand out. Yes, our cultivation is still too weak. Nietion helplessly smiled, a bitter expression on his face. He didn't fear anyone, but his cultivation was his weakness. It made it impossible for him to stand on the same level as others. His talent was extremely high. Facing ordinary martial artists, even if they were a realm higher than him, he could still fight. However, all the martial artists in front of him were geniuses. This made his talent advantage less obvious, especially when facing those peak geniuses. Teacher and Qing one haven't appeared yet. I hope everything goes well for them. Then, Emma suddenly sighed, unable to hide the worry in his eyes. Did your teacher and Qingwan go somewhere? Nietion frowned and couldn't help but ask Emo, teacher, when to get something for me. With that, I will have a chance to break through to the heavenly righteousness realm. Emo nodded. Nietion saw the worry in Emo's eyes. The thing his teacher wanted to get must be something extraordinary. However, Emo didn't seem to want to say more, so he didn't continue asking. At this time, there was still some time before the recruitment of the 5 academies. The barrier of vast cloud sacred city still hadn't opened, so everyone could only wait. Just then, Nietion suddenly felt something. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise as his expression changed. Little fella, your performance just now wasn't bad. Then, in his divine sense, a wretched voice sounded, accompanied by a chuckle. Chapter 39:11. It's that Star Lord Aura again. Nietion could not help but exclaim in surprise. He did not expect that the Star Venerate Aura would appear again at this moment. He was very sure that this Star Lord Aura was the Star Lord Aura that disappeared in a flash earlier. Little fellow, come with me. At this moment, the voice rang out again, telling Nietion to leave with him. Immediately, Nietion sensed that the Star Lord Aura was leaving in a certain direction. He did not hesitate to inform Emo and the others and immediately followed. After a while, Nietion followed the Star Lord Aura and arrived at a mountain range outside Vast Cloud Sacred City. However, at this moment, he actually felt that the Star Lord Aura had disappeared. Nietion frowned, feeling very surprised. However, his expression did not change much. Little fellow, I'm just joking with you. Don't be nervous. Immediately, the voice rang out again. This time, it was not in Nietion's spiritual sense, but by his ear. Nietion frowned, and then his eyes trembled. Suddenly, he turned around and saw that someone had appeared behind him. The person in front of him was burly and middle-aged. His facial features were clear, and his eyes were resolute. However, the mustache above his lips and the slanted smile on his lips made him look somewhat comical. Little fellow, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. No wonder the Star Origin Stone chose you. At this moment, the person was also observing Nietion. The corners of his mouth could not help but curl up even more. It seemed that he was very satisfied with Nietion. Senior, are you a Star Lord? Nietion's eyes darkened slightly. He did not beat around the bush and asked directly. I'm the White Tiger Star Lord. The person chuckled and said, You can call me Old White. Old White? Nietion was stunned. He could not help but be stunned for a moment. This form of address was very intimate. It turned out that the person in front of him was the White Tiger Star Lord of the 4 God Star Lords. Among the 4 heavenly monarchs, Nietion had already found the Azure Dragon Astral Soul and the Black Tortoise Astral Soul. Not only that, he had already found suitable owners for them. What he saw now was one of the 4 God Star Souls, the White Tiger Star Lord. Little guy, your name is Nietion, right? Then, the White Tiger Star Lord stroked his mustache. His eyes shone brightly as he sized up Nietion, trying to get a good look at him. Yes, Nietion nodded then laughed and said, "Senior White Tiger, you didn't call me here just to reunite with me, did you?" "Of course not." The White Tiger Star-Lord laughed and said, "I called you over because your talent and strength are pretty good. Otherwise, I wouldn't care about you." When Yation saw that the White Tiger Star-Lord did not seem to care at all, he was taken aback and did not know what to say. It was obvious that the White Tiger Star-Lord had seen his battle with Chi Chaochuan and the Holy Light Martial Intent, but he did not interfere. Yi Futian found it strange. Was the White Tiger Star-Lord not afraid that he would die at the hands of the Holy Light Martial Intent? Actually, the White Tiger Star-Lord's nonchalance was not an act. He really did not care. He had seen Yation's battle earlier and had no intention of interfering. He had already thought it through. If Yation could not even take a sword strike from the Holy Light Martial Intent, then he would not acknowledge him as the Starry Sky Holy Master. Fortunately, Yation did not disappoint him. In the end, he managed to block the sword strike from the Holy Light Martial Intent. At this moment, Yation looked at the White Tiger Star-Lord with blazing eyes, as if he was waiting for something. He felt that the White Tiger Star-Lord had called him out for more than just to get to know each other. "Yation, do you really want to join the 5 academies?" At this moment, the White Tiger Star-Lord seemed to know what Yation was thinking. He could not help but frown and ask, unhappily, "I have my reasons. Joining the 5 academies is just a temporary measure," Yation said with a faint smile and a nod. "Then, do you think you can join the 5 academies with your strength?" The White Tiger Star-Lord's lips twitched as he continued to ask. "There shouldn't be a problem, right?" Yation frowned. He could not help but feel uncertain. "Should?" The White Tiger Star-Lord raised his eyebrows and let out a strange cry. He said, "The 5 academies have not even started yet, and you are already in the limelight. Do you still think you can make it to the final round? Those so-called geniuses are not easy to deal with. Someone like you, who is extraordinarily talented and powerful, is not easy to deal with. They love to kill weak fellows." When Yation heard the White Tiger Star-Lord's words, he could not help but frown and become speechless. Most geniuses were arrogant and could not bear to see others in the limelight. A potential threat like Yation was indeed the best target for everyone to get rid of. Moreover, Yation had blocked the Holy Light Martial Intent's sword earlier. This made him even more of a target. The 5 academies' recruitment would definitely be a cruel competition between cultivators. At that time, Yation might not be able to survive. Although Yation was confident in his own strength, he would be facing the geniuses of the sacred heaven world. None of those fellows were simple. "Little fellow, isn't it a little too late to realize the danger now?" The White Tiger Star-Lord looked at Yation. Of course, he knew what the latter was thinking. He chuckled, taking pleasure in Yation's misfortune. "Senior, your responsibility is to protect me. You won't watch me get killed, right?" Yation said with a sudden laugh as he looked up. The White Tiger Star-Lord had secretly called him over and pointed out the danger. Of course, he already had a plan. "Yation, let me ask you, if your strength breaks through to the heavenly righteousness realm, are you confident of defeating the Holy Light Martial Intent?" The White Tiger Star-Lord looked at Yation and suddenly stopped smiling as he asked in a deep voice. Yation frowned and could not help but hesitate. If his strength broke through to the heavenly righteousness realm, he was confident of fighting against ordinary 9th-tier heavenly righteousness sages and even some weak heavenly tribulation sage monarchs. However, against the Holy Light Martial Intent, a 5th-tier heavenly righteousness super genius, he did not have much chance of winning. The Holy Light Martial Intent was a terrifying existence ranked in the top 10 of the Hidden Sky list. Its martial talent and sword talent were not much different from Yation's. He felt that it was a little difficult for him to fight against such a terrifying existence. "It seems that you are not confident." The White Tiger Star-Lord could not help but laugh when he saw Yation's reaction. He said mockingly, "This time, I'm afraid the Star Origin Stone has chosen the wrong person." "Huh?" Yation frowned, and his expression did not look good. Chapter 39:12. When the White Tiger Star Venerate left, and yet Tian could not help but exclaim in surprise. His expression turned extremely unsightly. However, when he tried to sense the white tiger Star-Lord's aura, he could not feel anything. This, Nye Tian looked disappointed. He did not expect to meet such a troublesome Star-Lord. However, he did not regret the answer he gave just now. He was just responding honestly. At this moment, even if he reached the heavenly justice realm, he might not be a match for the holy light martial intent. Martial strength could not be faked. It was never a good thing to underestimate one's opponent. There was only one way for Nye Tian to defeat the holy light martial intent. After he reached the heavenly justice realm and activated the god demon body, he would be able to suppress the holy light martial intent. However, the god demon body was his trump card. He would not use it unless he had no other choice. This guy really left just like that. He doesn't care about my feelings at all. Nye Tian looked at the empty surroundings and could not help but smile bitterly. Nye Tian, I will give you 5 days. If you can reach the heavenly justice realm within 5 days, I will come to see you again. But at this moment, the white tiger Star-Lord's voice sounded again, resounding in Nye Tian's ears like a thunderclap. 5 days. Nye Tian was shocked. He could not help but be stunned and could not react for a long time. It turned out that the white tiger Star-Lord did not leave immediately. Instead, he was observing him in secret. However, the conditions he proposed were a little too harsh. He actually wanted Nye Tian to break through to Saint Monarch Tianyi within 5 days. This was a little too much for Nye Tian. It should be known that Nye Tian had just reached the 9th tier of the heavenly mandate realm. He had not even stabilized his realm. How was it possible for him to break through again? Old Bai, you are really different from the other Star-Lords. Nye Tian frowned and shook his head with a bitter smile. Now that things had come to this, there was nothing he could do. He could only take it one step at a time. The Star-Lords he met before might not be obedient to him, but they at least respected him and helped him as much as possible. Now that he met a Star Venerate with a different attitude, he was not used to it. Nye Tian did not think too much. His figure moved, heading towards Vast Cloud Sacred City. The 5 Great Academies recruitment was about to begin. Vast Cloud Sacred City's barrier should be opening up very soon. After a while, Nye Tian returned to outside Vast Cloud Sacred City. Nye Tian, where have you been? Are you all right? Seeing that Nye Tian had returned, Emo immediately walked over and asked worriedly. I'm fine. Nye Tian smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. At this moment, more and more martial artists gathered outside Vast Cloud Sacred City, and there were actually close to 10 million as far as the eye could see. It would seem that the 5 Great Academies are indeed the holy land of martialism in the hearts of martial artists. There are actually so many people participating. I'm afraid that the upcoming competition will be even more intense than I imagined. Nye Tian looked at the crowd around him and bitterly smiled in his heart. Half a day passed. There were already enough martial artists gathered outside Vast Cloud Sacred City. Everyone looked at Vast Cloud Sacred City with burning eyes. Obviously, they were waiting for the sacred city's barrier to open. Rumble! Just at that moment, in the sky above the enormous Vast Cloud Sacred City, an explosion rang out. Following that, an azure-clothed figure forcibly broke through the spirit formation and stood in the sky. It's someone from Vast Cloud Sacred City. The crowd looked at the azure-clothed figure, and their gazes couldn't help trembling as they cried out in surprise. The spirit formation is about to open. Emo's gaze trembled slightly as he said to Nye Tian, Are your injuries okay? Nye Tian took a glance at Emo and asked with a deep voice. I'm fine. Emo laughed and was filled with confidence. Nye Tian sensed Emo's martial body and was endlessly shocked. Earlier, Emo's injuries were extremely serious. Yet, in only half a day's time, he had more or less recovered. It was truly terrifying. Everyone, welcome to the 5 Great Academy selection. At that moment, the azure-clothed old man spoke. His voice was very calm, but when it landed next to everyone's ears, it was like thunder. He said, I am an elder of Vast Cloud Sacred City, and also the common client of the 5 great academies. I am in charge of the recruitment of the 5 great academies this time. Elder. The crowd looked at the azure-clothed old man and bowed in unison. They were extremely respectful. The azure-clothed old man waved his hand and said, "There are too many participants in the recruitment of the 5 great academies this time. So, before the real test, you need to take a test." Test? What test? When the crowd heard what the azure-clothed old man said, their eyes couldn't help but tremble and their faces changed. Quiet. The azure-clothed old man spoke in a deep voice. Immediately, the crowd quieted down. He continued, "The spirit formation of vast cloud-sacred city is about to open, but it's not completely open. The spirit formation will still retain some pressure. If someone can't even withstand a bit of pressure from the spirit formation, it's not good. You are not qualified to participate in the recruitment of the 5 great academies." I see. The crowd's eyes trembled violently, and they actually relaxed. The test that the azure-clothed old man was talking about was just the pressure from the spirit formation. It didn't sound difficult. This kind of test is really good. Nietion's eyes narrowed, and he thought to himself. Although he wasn't a spirit formation grandmaster, he could sense how strong the spirit formation outside of vast cloud-sacred city was. If the spirit formation was closed, even Sky Martial Saint ancestor powerhouses would find it difficult to enter the sacred city. According to what the azure-clothed old man said, the test of the spirit formation was to see how many people the 5 great academies wanted to let into the city. If the spirit formation's pressure was strong, fewer people could enter the city. If the spirit formation's pressure was weak, naturally more people could enter the city. At this time, Nietion hoped that the spirit formation's pressure was stronger so that more people could be eliminated, because the spirit formation's pressure was more about the endurance of the martial body. Although his cultivation wasn't as good as others, his martial body was far stronger than ordinary martial artists. Even if it was the holy light martial intent, Nietion wouldn't necessarily lose to him in terms of martial body. Everyone, are you ready? At this time, the azure-clothed old man glanced at the crowd and spoke in a clear voice. "Ready." The crowd responded in unison. They couldn't wait any longer. However, the azure-clothed old man wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he looked at the crowd and glanced at them bit by bit, as if he was looking for something. When his gaze passed by Nietion, it clearly paused for a moment, and his expression also changed slightly. Nietion saw the azure-clothed old man's reaction, and he couldn't help but be surprised. Did this person see something on me? However, the azure-clothed old man quickly returned to normal and pretended that nothing had happened. Chapter 39:13. Tang 13. When Nietion saw the face of the person before him, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise and joy. He had been waiting for Tang 13 to show up. The 5 schools were recruiting students. Basically, all the geniuses in the holy world were here. It was very likely that Tang 13 would show up. Though he had been waiting for this, when Tang 13 actually showed up, Nietion was still pleasantly surprised. "Nietion, long time no see," Tang 13 said with a faint smile. She still had a frivolous look on her face when she saw Nietion. Nietion nodded. Then, he scanned Tang 13 with his divine sense. His expression froze, as if he was petrified. He couldn't react for a long time. He couldn't believe that Tang 13 had already reached the first level of heavenly righteousness. The heavenly righteousness realm was terrifying. The last time he saw Tang 13, his cultivation level was similar to Nietion's. He didn't expect Tang 13 to reach the heavenly righteousness realm in such a short amount of time. Back in the Rakshas's ancestral land, Tang 13 merged with the blood of the holy demon and became the holy demon blood master personally acknowledged by the holy demon grand ancestor. It had only been a few years since he and Nietion parted ways. He didn't expect his cultivation level to be this fast. Actually, Nietion's cultivation speed was also terrifying. However, he had all sorts of miraculous encounters, or else he wouldn't have reached his current cultivation level. Tang 13 must have had some extraordinary experiences during the time they parted. I was just lucky. Tang 13 looked at Nie Tian's surprised expression and knew what he was thinking. She couldn't help but chuckle. With a faint smile, Nie Tian said, "I'm very happy for you to have such strength." He was indeed very happy. He had thought that if he could meet Tang 13, he would be able to help Rui Qinyu activate the 10 annihilations of the evil woman. He was also worried that Tang 13 was not strong enough. It seemed like his worries were unnecessary. Where is Tang Yuyu? At this moment, Nie Tian suddenly realized that Tang 13 was alone. He frowned and asked, "She is already in Vast Cloud, Holy City." Tang 13 laughed as his eyes were filled with anticipation. It had been a long time since he and Tang Yuyu had seen each other. Already in the city? Hearing Tang 13's words, Nie Tian frowned and his expression changed. Didn't everyone forbid Yun from entering the city? Why was Tang Yuyu already in the city? The 5 schools are recruiting students. Those with different statuses have already entered the city. Tang 13 chuckled. "If I want to, I can enter the city directly." Nie Tian's lips curled into a bitter smile. It turned out that different people received different treatments. After becoming the Holy Demon Blood Kaiser, Tang 13's worldview had indeed changed. It seemed that in the enrollment of the 5 schools, the opponents that Nie Tian had to face were not only these people in front of him, but also the geniuses that were already in the city. The super genius of the Angel Clan with the Holy Light martial intent was also qualified to enter the city. However, this guy should have the intention to enter the city with everyone else. He could also see how strong the others were. "I hereby announce that the enchantment of Vast Cloud Holy City is now open." At this moment, the old man in cyan announced solemnly. Boom! Just as his voice fell, the enchantment outside of Vast Cloud Holy City shook. A strong wave of energy surged and spread in all directions. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. He could clearly feel that the enchantment had weakened a lot. The enchantment is open. Hurry up and enter the city. In the next moment, everyone reacted and immediately shouted. Countless figures moved at the same time. Like a raging wave, they pressed towards Vast Cloud, Holy City. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone present was a genius martial artist. After they moved at the same time, the void suddenly roared and the world shook. The enchantment doesn't close immediately. It's better to be in a hurry. Nie Tian looked at everyone and couldn't help but frown. He smiled and said, "Anyway, the enchantment wouldn't close immediately, so he didn't need to worry. Whether or not one could pass through the enchantment depended on one's strength. It wasn't like rushing to the front could enter. Nie Tian wasn't in a hurry. Tang 13, Emo, and the others weren't in a hurry either. They waited quietly to see how everyone was doing. After a while, Nie Tian saw that only half of the martial artists who passed through the enchantment could enter. The other half were directly blocked outside. One enchantment eliminated half of the people. Impressive. Nie Tian looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth as he murmured, "Let's go in. It's boring to watch from here." Tang 13 smiled faintly. Then, her figure moved and she directly rushed in. Clearly, she wanted to see Tang Yuyu. She was a little impatient. "Let's go in." Nie Tian smiled faintly and rushed in as well. He moved like lightning and arrived outside the enchantment in an instant. Immediately, he felt the powerful aura from the enchantment, which shocked him. I wonder what kind of person created such a huge enchantment. Nie Tian looked at the enchantment and couldn't help but sigh. No single world spiritist can create an enchantment like this alone. Even if there aren't 10,000, there are at least 8,000. And they're all peak saint-level world spiritists. Fat Cat's voice also rang out at that moment. She couldn't help but sigh. Yeah, Nie Tian nodded. He was shocked. For a core city like Vast Cloud City, with such a powerful enchantment, it was really impregnable. Afterwards, Nie Tian moved. He stepped out, and like a fish, he directly entered the enchantment. In an instant, he felt a powerful pressure from the enchantment. However, to him, it was completely acceptable. What a powerful pressure. However, this kind of pressure was too much for Darkwind to handle. His face paled as a result. Nie Tian glanced at Qi Chenfeng and smiled faintly. Although Qi Chenfeng was struggling, he was strong enough to pass through the enchantment. In the enchantment, Nie Tian could move freely. After a while, he passed through the enchantment and immediately felt a lot more relaxed. We finally entered Vast Cloud City. Jun Jianxing and the others also passed through the enchantment and could not help but relax. Chapter 39:14. After Nie Tian and the rest entered Vast Cloud's sacred city, they didn't descend immediately. Instead, they waited for the green-robed elders' next arrangements. Then, about half an hour later, the barrier closed again. Those who couldn't enter the barrier ended their trip to Vast Cloud's sacred city. Countless people pounded their chests and stomped their feet in anger. But there was nothing they could do. They could only leave with regret. At this moment, countless gazes were focused on the green-robed elder, waiting for the latter's arrangements. Everyone, the recruitment of the 5 academies will begin in 3 days. 3 days later, all of you will report to Vast Cloud Plaza. The green-robed elder glanced at the crowd and said loudly, "In the next 3 days, all of you can learn about Vast Cloud Sacred City. The recruitment will begin in 3 days." When the crowd heard the green-robed elder's words, they couldn't help but clamor. Obviously, they didn't expect that they still had 3 days. "Now all of you can leave." The green-robed elder didn't care about the crowd's reaction. After that, his silhouette flashed and he left. The crowd stared at the place where the green-robed elder disappeared. They couldn't help but frown. Their faces were filled with astonishment and reluctance. "Nie Tian, there are still 3 days left. What are your plans?" At this moment, Tang 13 looked at Nie Tian and asked, "I just arrived at Vast Cloud, Sacred City. I'm not very familiar with everything. Let's use these 3 days to understand the situation here." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He could tell that Tang 13 had something on her mind. He then asked, "Where are you going next?" "I'm going to look for the people from the Azura clan. Although they aren't too friendly to me, I have this identity after all. It's better for me to meet those old fellows." Tang 13 bitterly smiled. Her face was filled with helplessness. "All right then, let's part ways." Nie Tian nodded and said, "But I still have something I need your help with. If it's possible, can you bring Tang Yuyu to find me one day later?" "Sure." Tang 13 nodded in agreement when she saw the solemn expression on Nie Tian's face. She and Nie Tian had a resonance. It wasn't difficult to find Nie Tian. "EMO, what about you?" After Tang 13 left, Nie Tian asked EMO, "I'm going to look for Teacher and Qingwan. They haven't appeared yet, and I'm a little worried." EMO frowned, and his expression was a little ugly. He was obviously very worried. "I'll go with you. I haven't seen Qingwan in a long time. It's a good time to see if she has changed." Nie Tian laughed, telling EMO not to worry too much. "All right." EMO nodded and forced a smile. Then, Nie Tian and the others landed in Vast Cloud Sacred City with EMO. After landing, Nie Tian looked at the surrounding streets and buildings and was even more shocked. The buildings here were towering and tall, and the streets were extremely wide. Almost all of the buildings had the aura of a powerful array. Clearly, they were all protected by array formations. Even the bluestone ground under his feet was protected by a formation. Vast Cloud Sacred City is indeed the core city of the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, "Nie Tian, don't forget that we still need to buy some core spiritual materials." At this moment, Fat Cat's voice suddenly rang, reminding Nie Tian. "Yeah." Nie Tian nodded. He had been thinking about this for a long time. He wasn't particularly worried about buying spiritual materials. After all, this was Vast Cloud's sacred city. As long as he had money, what couldn't he buy? What he was worried about now was that it would be difficult to gather 6 genius martial artists in a short period of time. Currently, he already had 3 candidates in mind: Jun Jianxing, EMO, and Tang 13. Including himself, there were only 4 people. He was still missing 2 people. He asked Tang 13 to bring Tang Yuyu along to look for him because he wanted to see Tang Yuyu's strength and see if he could add 1 more person. But even with Tang Yuyu, there were still only 5 people. Originally, Nyetian thought that Cher could be counted as one. But now Cher was already struggling to protect herself. Nyetian, is there something bothering you? At this time, Emo saw that Nyetian's expression wasn't too good, and he couldn't help but ask. Nothing. Nyetian smiled faintly. Then he raised his head and asked, Emo, do you have any friends in Vast Cloud, Sacred City? Friends? Emo looked at Nyetian and couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't know what the latter wanted to ask. Yes, friends. Nyetian nodded and said, they must be young and talented enough. No. Emo frowned and shook his head. It was also his first time coming to Vast Cloud, Sacred City, so he didn't know anyone else at all. And during this period of time in the sacred world, he had always been focused on his own cultivation, so he didn't know too many people. Nyetian, have you encountered any difficulties? Emo frowned and could not help but ask. Let's find Qingwan first. After we find Qingwan, I'll tell you in detail. Nyetian smiled helplessly and nodded. Fair enough. Emo agreed. Right now, he was indeed very worried about Nyetian's safety. He hoped to find the latter as soon as possible. A while later, Nyetian and the others arrived outside a strange building. The building was abnormally tall, but the style was very strange. It was like a huge hand holding a huge egg, giving people a sense of novelty. What is this place? Nyetian looked at the strange building in front of him and could not help but frown. This is the Myriad Yuan Pavilion. Back then, I agreed with my teacher that if I can't find him, I'll come here and wait for him. Emo nodded slightly before striding towards the Myriad Yuan Pavilion. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. Without thinking too much, he followed over. Stop. Just as they arrived at the entrance, two guards in black appeared and blocked the door. One of them looked at them with an extremely disdainful gaze and asked coldly, What are you doing? Nyetian looked at the two guards and could not help but frown. These two people were actually Heaven Tribulation King Saints. Judging from their aura, they should be high-level Heaven Tribulation King Saints. The two guards guarding the door were actually high-level Heaven Tribulation King Saints. It was really terrifying. We're here to find someone. Emo did not panic. He took out a token and handed it to the two guards. Mister, please. When the two guards saw the token, their expressions changed at the same time. They were extremely shocked and immediately became extremely respectful. They bowed deeply to Emo and said respectfully. Emo nodded lightly and did not say much. He walked straight in, and Nyetian and the others followed closely. Huh. The moment they stepped into the Myriad Yuan Pavilion, Nyetian seemed to sense something. His expression suddenly changed, and he could not help but let out a cry of surprise. What's wrong? Emo looked at Nyetian with a puzzled expression. However, Nyetian frowned, and his expression changed rapidly. He was very shocked.